Good evening and welcome to a Victorian home where the parlour wallpaper is beautiful, expensive and possibly the least trustworthy object in the room. From the street, the house looks peaceful. The curtains are drawn neatly, the brass on the door shines, and a respectable wife appears to be moving calmly through a life built from tea, polished furniture and sensible moral values. Once you step inside, the arrangement becomes less restful. The fire is smoking again. The water has not carried itself upstairs. Somewhere in the nursery, a bottle of soothing medicine is being far too vague about its ingredients. The disturbing part of Victorian domestic life is not simply that dangers existed, it is how ordinary they could feel. A housewife may spend her morning keeping coal dust away from pale fabric, her afternoon judging whether the meat is still safe, and her evening standing beside a gas flame that has made the room brighter without making the air noticeably better. None of this is presented as unusual. It is merely housekeeping. The Victorian home is praised as a place of comfort and good character, but comfort depends on hidden labour. Someone must tend the stove, empty the bedroom waste, and wash the linen. In a wealthy home, servants perform much of that work. Their effort is expected to disappear before the family enters the room. In a smaller household, the wife may perform it herself, possibly while caring for children and stretching an allowance that was never designed to enjoy surprises. Tonight, we are mainly following a married woman in a modest middle-class English household during the middle of the 1880s. Her life does not represent every Victorian woman. A widow earning wages has a different day from a society wife with several servants, and poverty can turn a household inconvenience into a genuine emergency. Money changes who carries the burden. It does not remove the rules surrounding marriage, motherhood and respectability. You are expected to keep the home orderly because its condition is treated as evidence of your own character. A late dinner may suggest poor management. A dusty mantle may suggest moral decline has entered through the chimney. If illness appears, you must decide whether the doctor can help, whether the medicine can be trusted, and whether the family can afford either one. Even your own body may be discussed in softened phrases, while everyone nearby offers advice with remarkable confidence. Victorian women were not helpless figures wandering through dangerous rooms. They developed skill, judgment, and a strong sense of which smell required immediate attention. They knew how to preserve food, nurse sick children, and make limited money last. Much of the household survived because a woman noticed trouble before anyone else did. Naturally, this was often described as instinct rather than work, which saved society the inconvenience of paying for it. If you enjoy these calm journeys into the parts of history that respectable portraits carefully left outside the frame, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No pressure. It simply helps the channel more than you might imagine. Leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there. Somewhere, a sensible adult is awake after midnight, learning that clean sheets once required boiling water, aching shoulders, and an entire day that never appeared in the laundry advertisement. The Quiet Hours is also on Spotify, so if you prefer falling asleep through headphones while a quiet voice explains why attractive green wallpaper might require medical suspicion, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights, put a fan on if you have one, pull the blanket closer, turn the pillow to the cool side, and enjoy the modern comfort of bedding that does not need to be warmed with a metal pan of hot coals. How restful can a nursery be when the soothing syrup may contain opium? And how clean can a coal-heated house remain when the fuel is quietly settling across the mantel? Let the present grow still. When you open your eyes again, it is the middle of the 1880s. Frost clouds the bedroom window. The fire has almost gone out, and the first pale light reveals the coal scuttle beside the grate. Your husband is still asleep. The household will soon expect warmth. Victorian comfort begins with you kneeling in yesterday's ash. Before your feet touch the floor, the room has already formed its own opinion about winter. A little warmth remains near the hearth, but the air beside the window feels sharp against your face. You pull on a dressing gown and crouch before the grate. In a wealthy home, a servant may have entered earlier and rebuilt the fire without waking anyone. Here, the embers are your responsibility. Paper goes beneath the kindling, followed by coal placed carefully enough to let the air move. Too much fuel can smother what remains. Too little means returning in 10 minutes with further encouragement. Soon the iron begins to tick as it warms. Comfort is coming. it must first be carried from the scuttle and persuaded to burn. The room is still dim enough that the furniture seems to have withdrawn into itself. Frost feathers the lower panes, and the washstand has taken on the severe dignity of a monument. You lean closer to the grate and search for a red point beneath the ash. The poker scrapes against iron. Fine dust lifts into the air and settles on the cuff of your gown, which is how the morning introduces itself. If one ember survives, you feed it slowly. A twist of paper catches first. Then a sliver of wood begins to glow. Victorian comfort is built from many small things that require attention before breakfast. Coal comes next. It may have been bought by the ton if the household has money and storage, or in smaller quantities if the budget is tight. Buying less often costs more, which is one of history's quieter ways of charging poor families extra for being poor. The scuttle itself must be filled in a cellar, shed, or yard. A coal merchant's cart may have delivered the fuel days earlier, leaving black heaps in the cellar and a bill in the account book. Someone carried each lump into storage, and someone will carry it out again a few pounds at a time. During a hard winter, you learn the level of the pile almost as carefully as the level of flour in the pantry. A warm room tonight can mean a colder one next week. You therefore build the fire to last, not to impress. The grate must breathe, the coal must catch evenly, and no piece should be wasted merely because your toes have become impatient. In a larger home, a servant makes the journey before dawn. In your house, the black line along the stair edge suggests that nobody has found a graceful method. Coal quality matters. Good fuel burns hotter and more steadily. Inferior coal can smoke, crumble, and leave stubborn clinker behind. You place the pieces with enough space for air, then open the draught below the grate. A faint pull begins. The flame creeps upward and catches one edge of the coal. Smoke should rise into the chimney. Sometimes it prefers the room. A blocked flue, damp fuel, or unhelpful wind can send a grey cloud beneath the mantel, leaving you coughing beside a fire whose main achievement is making the bedroom less visible. Chimneys need regular sweeping because soot builds inside them. If ignored, that soot can catch fire. A roaring chimney fire may sound energetic, but very few householders wish to discover one while still wearing slippers. You watch until the smoke chooses the proper direction. Only then do you sit back on your heels. The iron grate begins to warm, though the heat travels slowly. Victorian rooms are often heated one at a time. Corridors stay cold, spare bedrooms colder, and the parlour may receive a fire only when visitors are expected. Respectability enjoys warmth most when company can see it. Families with limited coal close unused rooms and gather around one hearth. The fireplace becomes the centre of domestic life because the rest of the house has become a climate experiment. Bedrooms may remain cold enough that dressing requires speed and a firm view of duty. Bed curtains help trap warmth. Thick blankets help more. A warming pan filled with hot coals may be passed between the sheets before sleep, though careless use can scorch linen or leave dangerous fumes. Even comfort arrives with instructions. As the fire strengthens, the room begins to change. Ice on the glass softens at the edge. The metal bed frame loses some of its hostility. Your fingers stop aching. Heat reaches only a few feet from the grate, but those few feet matter. You move a chair nearer and place the coal scuttle where it will not be kicked after dark. By now, your husband may be stirring beneath the blankets, enjoying the improved temperature without having witnessed the negotiations that produced it. This is a familiar household arrangement. The result appears. The labour disappears. Below stairs, another fire may be waiting in the kitchen range, and that one will need to boil water, heat breakfast, and remain alive through the day. The bedroom grate is only the first request. You brush ash from your sleeve and stand. The room is not warm, exactly, but it has agreed to become survivable. A faint orange line now glows beneath the coal. Your husband turns comfortably toward the heat. Morning has arrived, and it has already chosen which member of the household will meet it first. Once the fire catches, you turn toward the washstand. The porcelain pitcher looks generous until a narrow stream reaches the basin. In a room without running water, every drop has been pumped, carried, and perhaps heated downstairs. You wash your face first. Hands and neck follow while the rest of the body waits for a day when more water can be spared. A full bath requires fuel, a portable tub, and someone willing to remove the used water afterward. Victorian people are not strangers to cleanliness. Cleanliness simply has weight. If warm water has been brought by a servant, the steam rising near your face represents another person's climb up the stairs. You dry your hands slowly. The pitcher is lighter now. The labour behind it is not. The basin sits inside a wooden washstand, often beside a small soap dish and folded towel. The matching jug may be painted with flowers, offering refinement while you bend over water cold enough to make your shoulders rise. You wet a cloth, touch it to your face, and feel the chill travel across the skin. On a winter morning, even a modest wash asks for resolve. The visible parts come first because hands, neck and face are what the world will inspect. Clean skin and a fresh collar suggest order. A dark mark near the cuff may be treated as evidence that the household is slipping, rather than evidence that coal has recently been carried through it. Bathing habits vary with class, place, health, and access to water. A daily wash of exposed skin is common in many homes, while fuller washing depends on season, privacy, and available help. Underclothes absorb sweat and can be changed more easily than an elaborate dress, so clean linen matters greatly. The body is managed in parts because water, heat, and time are all limited. This is not a refusal of hygiene, it is hygiene arranged around buckets. Even a careful sponge bath becomes a practical calculation. How much warmth remains in the room? How much water can be spared? And who must carry the evidence away when you are done? Some later Victorian homes have indoor plumbing, especially among prosperous families and in newer urban buildings. Others depend on a kitchen tap, yard pump, well, or cistern. None of these supplies is guaranteed to be clean. Clear water can carry danger without changing its appearance, particularly where waste enters wells or rivers. Sanitary reform improves public systems during the century, but progress does not reach every street at once. The water in your pitcher may be safe, it may simply look polite. A full bath can take place in a fixed tub if the house has one. More often, a portable metal or wooden tub is brought near the fire. Bucket after bucket must be heated and poured into it. When the bathing is finished, the same water must be carried away. A bath therefore resembles a small household operation more than a quiet hour alone. You do not casually fill a deep tub and remain there while considering life. Several people may already have considered life while moving the water upstairs. If the household employs servants, warm water can appear quietly at the bedroom door. A maid fills the jug below stairs, wraps a cloth around the handle, and climbs a narrow staircase without spilling it on her dress. She may return later for the slop jar and damp towels. The ritual looks effortless because the effort enters and leaves through a service passage. In a smaller house, you make the journey yourself. A full bucket pulls at the shoulder. In winter, the pump handle can punish bare fingers. In summer, the supply may run low or taste stale. Every cup has value because somebody has lifted it. You do not leave water running while searching for a towel. There is no running water, and the towel has had time to think about where it was placed. Soap is widely available, from strong household bars to finer toilet soaps scented for personal use. Some varieties are harsh enough to leave the skin tight and red. A little goes onto the cloth, and you work carefully around the ears and hairline. Tooth cleaning may follow with a small brush and tooth powder. Commercial powders and home recipes can contain chalk, charcoal, soap, or other abrasive material. The taste is rarely memorable for the right reason. Dental treatment is improving, but it remains expensive and often painful. Keeping the teeth clean is therefore not merely a beauty habit. It is a sensible effort to avoid meeting the dentist's instruments at closer range. Hair washing requires its own timetable. Long hair takes hours to dry, and a cold house does not encourage cheerful experiments before breakfast. Brushing removes dust and spreads natural oils, while a fuller wash waits for a day with enough heat and time. You finish at the basin and look toward the weak patch of light on the floor. The room smells faintly of soap, damp linen, and coal smoke. Water beads along the porcelain rim. The used cloth hangs beside it. You are clean enough to dress, receive family, and satisfy the visible standards of the morning. Later, someone will carry the basin water downstairs and empty it. The household will remember that you look fresh. It will not remember the weight of the jug. Beneath the bed waits the object that made the cold night more manageable and the morning slightly less graceful. A chamber pot saves you from crossing an unheated corridor or walking outside to a privy in darkness. Its usefulness ends when it must be emptied. In houses without indoor sanitation, Waste travels through rooms in containers rather than disappearing through pipes. A servant may remove it in a prosperous household. Elsewhere, the task belongs to you or another family member. Spills, smells, and careless disposal create obvious problems, especially in crowded streets where drains and privies are already under strain. You lift the pot carefully and carry it toward the door. Victorian modesty has many rules. None of them makes this container lighter. The vessel may be plain earthenware or part of a decorated bedroom set, because even unavoidable bodily needs are encouraged to match the wallpaper. In some rooms it sits openly beneath the bed. In others it is hidden inside a commode or nightstand. A fitted lid helps. So does cold weather, although winter has already contributed enough to the household. You move through the doorway slowly, keeping the pot level. A loose rug, narrow stair, or half-awake child can make the journey suddenly memorable. In a large home, a housemaid collects chamber pots early, often before the family has fully risen. She empties and scrubs them, airs the rooms, and removes every sign before breakfast. The work is intimate and repetitive. It rarely appears in sentimental descriptions of domestic service. A fine bedroom can look untouched by human inconvenience because another person has carried that inconvenience down the back stairs. In a modest household, family members handle their own pots. The route matters. You may pass a nursery door, descend a back stair, then cross a cold passage before reaching the proper place. There is no sensible moment to hurry. The pot is heavy enough to demand both hands, yet ordinary household life continues around you. A servant may be carrying coal upward while you carry waste down. The two of you meet at the landing and perform the small, careful turn required when a narrow staircase has been asked to manage the whole human condition. The contents may go into a privy, cesspit, drain, or slop pail, depending on the house and local arrangements. In the countryside, the privy usually stands outside. In towns, several families may share one yard closet. A crowded court can contain too many people and too little drainage. When pits overflow or drains fail, smells travel through windows and passages, especially in summer. The problem is more than unpleasant. Human waste can contaminate water and help spread disease. By the later Victorian period, public health reform has made the connection between dirty water, poor drainage, and outbreaks much harder to ignore. New sewers and water systems improve life in many places, but change remains uneven. A law passed in London does not place a flushing closet inside every rented room by the following week. Even homes with indoor water closets are not free from trouble. Early systems can leak, traps may fail to block sewer gases, pipes freeze in winter. A new bathroom may display polished brass and porcelain while offering an odour suggesting that the drain below has joined the family conversation. You reach the service area and empty the pot with care. Water and a brush are used to clean it. Household disinfectants may be added, though strong smells do not always mean real safety. The vessel must be rinsed and dried before returning upstairs. Floors, hands, and cloths need attention afterward. Germ theory becomes more widely accepted during the later 19th century, but domestic practice still relies heavily on what can be seen and smelled. If an object looks clean and no longer offends the nose, the matter may be considered settled. The nose is working hard as an unpaid health inspector. Outside the home, night soil collection forms part of the wider urban system. In districts without sewer connections, workers empty privies and cesspools, often after dark to reduce public offence. The waste may be carted away for disposal or agricultural use. It is difficult labour performed close to everything respectable households wish to forget. Cleaner streets and pleasant drawing rooms depend on men and women working in yards, cellars and drains, where family portraits are seldom taken. In poorer neighbourhoods, shared facilities can be distant, filthy or unsafe after dark. Women and children may avoid using them at night, which makes chamber pots even more necessary. Privacy is limited. A thin wall, crowded room, or shared lodging turns a private bodily act into something managed through timing, lowered voices and determined politeness. Illness makes the task harder. A sick child or bedridden adult may need frequent help, producing more washing and a greater risk of contamination. The person giving care must handle all of this while also preparing food and tending the fire. Domestic life keeps its clean and dirty work much closer together than modern plumbing allows you to remember. You rinse the chamber pot again and set it upside down to dry. The bedroom above can now return to being a place of sleep, dressing, and respectable conversation. By evening, the vessel will be back beneath the bed, ready to solve the same problem once more. Sanitation has not disappeared. It has simply been given a handle and assigned to somebody. With the bedroom restored to order, dressing can begin. The first garments are plain and practical. Stockings are drawn into place, followed by the soft layer worn against the skin. Then comes the corset, tightened gradually so the bodice will sit correctly above it. A well-fitted corset can provide support, and not every woman is laced into the dramatic shape later cartoons enjoy. Poor fit and long wear are less forgiving. By the time the outer dress is fastened, your body is carrying fabric stiffening and the day's expectations in roughly equal measure. Fashion changes throughout the Victorian period, but respectable clothing rarely encourages haste. You turn sideways to check the fit. The dress looks composed. Ordinary movement will now have to cooperate. Dressing begins with garments meant to protect the outer clothes from the body and the body from the outer clothes. A chemise or similar underlayer sits against the skin. Drawers and stockings follow, secured with ties or garters. These pieces are easier to wash than a fitted dress, which may contain trim, stiffening, and fabrics that do not enjoy meeting water. The corset goes over the chemise so its seams and bones do not rub directly against bare skin. You settle it around your torso, fasten the front busk, then draw the back laces tighter in stages. A maid may help in a wealthier home. Without one, you learn to manage the lacing yourself or ask a relative. The aim is not always an impossibly tiny waist. Many women use corsets for support and to create the fashionable line expected beneath a fitted bodice. Still, pressure around the ribs and abdomen can become uncomfortable, especially when the garment is badly made, tightened too strongly, or worn through a long day of bending and sitting. Doctors, dress reformers, and women themselves argue about the effects. Fashion continues dressing for dinner while the argument proceeds. Over the corset comes a cover, then petticoats, and whatever structure the current silhouette requires. In the middle of the 1880s, the bustle has returned strongly in fashionable dress. A pad or metal framework supports the fullness at the back of the skirt. Drapery falls over it in folds. From the front, the figure appears narrow. From the side, it has acquired a practical shelf. The structure changes how you sit. A chair must be approached with care, and the skirt arranged before lowering yourself. Some bustles fold, others insist that furniture adapt. Doorways, carriages, and crowded rooms all become small lessons in geometry. A woman working in a kitchen or factory cannot always dress like a fashionable illustration. Practical clothing is simpler, and many working women wear washable aprons over sturdy dresses. Class appears in fabric, fit, condition, and the number of garments available. A wealthy woman may have morning dresses, visiting clothes, dinner gowns, and morning wear stored for different occasions. A poorer wife remakes what she owns. Hems are turned, sleeves altered, and old fabric given a new life because fashion changes faster than household income. Sewing machines make construction easier for many families, and ready-made clothing becomes more common. Fit still matters. The outer gown cannot be washed casually. Mud is brushed away after drying. Small stains are treated by hand, and seams are inspected where the weight pulls hardest. A torn hook can spoil the line of the bodice and leave you feeling exposed in a room full of people pretending not to notice. You therefore keep needles, thread, and spare fastenings close. Clothing is repaired before it becomes impossible to repair. A good dress may survive several seasons by changing trim or sleeves. It grows older with dignity because the household cannot afford for fashion to behave like weather. A dress pulled awkwardly across the bodice or worn too long at the hem can mark the difference between respectable appearance and public comment. You fasten hooks along the front, smoothing the fabric where it meets the waist. The sleeves allow movement, though not generous movement. The collar sits high against the neck. In winter, layers bring welcome warmth. In summer, the same layers hold heat close to the skin while society continues expecting a calm expression. Perspiration is private. The dress must remain composed. Everyday work tests the clothing immediately. Reaching toward a grate draws the skirt near sparks. Lifting a child strains the bodice. Carrying a basket pulls one shoulder down while the corset insists that posture remain neat. Stairs ask you to gather the hem with one hand and hold the banister with the other. Mud waits outside. Furniture corners wait indoors. The dress looks elegant because you spend much of the day preventing ordinary surroundings from touching it incorrectly. Finally, you place your feet into buttoned boots or house shoes suited to the morning. A button hook helps close the small fastenings along the ankle. The stockings wrinkle slightly at one side, but the skirt conceals the offence. You stand, take a breath, and test the range of movement. Reaching a high shelf will require planning. Picking something from the floor will involve technique. The mirror shows the finished result rather than the work underneath. That is the point. Respectable dress should look natural, even when it contains enough hidden structure to qualify as a modest building project. The final hook is secure, but the mirror is not finished with you. Long hair must be brushed, arranged, and pinned into a shape that appears controlled without looking overly artificial. The effect can require false pieces, padding, or carefully saved hair collected from the brush. Washing is planned around weather and drying time because damp hair in a cold bedroom can occupy most of the day. Powders, creams, and hair preparations promise improvement, though their ingredients are not always explained clearly. Respectable beauty should look natural, which gives everyone the pleasure of pretending no work has occurred. You press one loose pin into place and study the result. The face is calm. The scalp has been fully briefed. The brush moves from root to end in long strokes, catching dust and smoothing the surface. Victorian women often wear their hair long, even when most of it is hidden in a bun, coil, or braided arrangement. Cutting it short can carry meanings that have little to do with convenience. Long hair is linked with femininity, health, and respectable appearance, although maintaining it requires time that fashion magazines rarely count. Loose hair belongs mainly to private rooms, childhood, illness, or the moments before dressing is complete. Once you enter the household day, every strand is expected to understand its position. Hair washing is not necessarily rare, but it is inconvenient. Water must be warmed, the hair must be rinsed thoroughly, and drying can take hours. In winter, sitting beside the fire with wet hair is uncomfortable and may be blamed for every cold that follows. Between washings, brushing removes surface dirt and helps spread natural oils. Powders or scented preparations may be used to freshen the hair. Some women make treatments at home. Others buy bottled products that promise growth, shine, or the return of hair lost through illness and childbirth. Advertisements speak with confidence because confidence is cheaper than proof. You divide the hair and begin twisting it into shape. A simple household arrangement may be practical and firm. A visiting style asks for more care. Fashionable shapes change through the century, from smooth centre parts to fuller coils and elaborate forms at the back or crown. Hairpins hold the structure in place. They also have a habit of shifting by afternoon and pressing into the scalp with the patience of a small metal reminder. If your own hair lacks enough volume, false pieces can help. These may be bought, made from human hair, or formed using hair saved from the brush and collected inside a small receiver on the dressing table. The idea may sound peculiar to a modern listener, but throwing away useful hair would seem equally strange in a world where almost every material is reused. The saved strands can be shaped into padding, sometimes called a rat, then placed beneath the living hair to add fullness. The result looks natural because the evidence has been pinned underneath it. Your face receives attention next. Victorian ideals favour clear, pale skin among women who do not work outdoors, because pallor suggests class as much as beauty. Sunlight darkens the skin of people whose labour takes place outside. A parasol, hat, or veil can therefore protect both complexion and social message. Cosmetics are used, though open use may be criticised as artificial or morally doubtful. This does not prevent women from buying face powders, cold creams, lip salves, and preparations meant to soften freckles or brighten the skin. Some are harmless enough. Others contain lead, mercury, or harsh acids, especially in products sold without strong control. The desire to look naturally healthy can lead to ingredients that make health less certain. You dab a small amount of powder across the nose and chin, then wipe away any visible excess. The aim is not to look painted. The aim is to look as though your skin has arranged itself through good character. Rouge may be used lightly, particularly in fashionable circles, while stronger colour risks comment. Eyebrows are shaped more by brushing and natural line than by the bold cosmetics of later decades. Scent comes from soap, sachets, or perfume used with care. A respectable woman should smell pleasant, but not announce her arrival from the landing. The room itself contributes to the work. Daylight is best for judging colour, but winter offers little of it. Gaslight and candlelight soften some flaws while creating others. A powder that looks delicate beside the window can become startling near the breakfast table. You lean toward the glass and turn your face slightly. Mirrors are smaller and less forgiving than modern ones, yet they still provide enough information to create anxiety before tea. Before leaving, you smooth the front with both palms and secure the last pin more firmly. One loose strand can be charming in a portrait. At breakfast, it may simply suggest that the morning has defeated you early. You check the hair from the side and touch the coil at the back. It feels secure. The process has taken time, but the finished appearance must suggest that time has not been involved. When you leave the room, nobody should notice the pins, saved hair, powder, or cold cream. They should simply decide that you look well. Beauty has succeeded when its labour becomes as invisible as the servant who emptied the water jug. By the time you reach the table, the milk has arrived from somewhere beyond the household and offers no detailed account of the journey. You pour a little into the tea and watch it carefully. Food adulteration is a familiar concern in Victorian Britain. Milk may be watered, while ground goods can be mixed with cheaper material. Regulation improves during the century, but enforcement is uneven and the shopper still depends heavily on reputation. A reliable grocer is worth keeping. So is the habit of smelling food before serving it. Bread, eggs and tea appear simple, yet each has travelled through a market shaped by price and trust. You taste the butter, it seems honest enough. Breakfast proceeds on that reassuring legal standard. The table reflects what the household can afford. A comfortable middle-class family may have bread, eggs, bacon, porridge or fish, with tea or coffee poured from a pot kept warm near the fire. A poorer household may begin with bread and dripping, weak tea, or whatever remains from the previous day. Appetite has never been distributed according to income, though breakfast often is. You lift the lid from the sugar bowl and use less than you would like. Sugar is becoming more common and affordable, but every spoonful still belongs to the week's budget. Tea has settled deeply into British daily life, carried through global trade and empire into rooms far from the plantations where it was grown. The leaves in your pot contain a much wider world than the family conversation acknowledges. Milk deserves caution. In towns, it may arrive by cart from a nearby dairy, carried in large cans and measured into household jugs. Each stage creates a chance for dirt, delay or dilution. Sellers can add water to increase profit. If that water is unsafe, the fraud becomes dangerous. Warm weather encourages souring, and diseases can spread through contaminated supplies. Boiling milk offers protection, but not every household does it regularly. You smell the jug and look for separation. It passes the morning inspection. Butter and cheese raise similar questions. Colour may be adjusted to make butter look richer. Inferior fats can be sold as something better. A trusted shopkeeper matters because labels do not yet provide the full modern account of ingredients and origin. The grocer's reputation becomes part of the household food system. If his flour is good and his scales appear honest, you return. If the pepper tastes more like floor dust than spice, the relationship may need review. Adulteration can affect bread, coffee, tea, mustard, and sweets. Ground products are easy to stretch because the customer cannot see what entered the mill. Coffee may contain chicory or roasted grain. This is not always secret or harmful, but fraud begins when the cheaper material is sold as pure coffee. Tea can be mixed with used leaves or other plants, then coloured to improve appearance. Some brightly coloured sweets and pickles use pigments that are better suited to paint. Public concern leads to stronger laws and testing during the 19th century, including legislation that gives local authorities more power to act. Improvement is real. So is the distance between a law being passed and every breakfast becoming safe. The breakfast table also reveals how much household skill stands between ordinary food and illness. Milk is kept as cool as the house allows. Bread is covered from dust, eggs are stored carefully, and meat is bought in amounts that can be used before warmth changes it. A careless supplier creates trouble, but so does a pantry left too warm. You therefore judge both merchant and household. This is not scientific testing in the modern sense. It is close attention repeated every day until experience becomes more useful than the label. You cut a slice of bread. Commercial bakeries are growing, especially in towns, but many homes still bake or buy from a familiar local baker. Flour quality varies, and cheap bread may be made from lower grades. The loaf in front of you is fresh enough to resist suspicion. Eggs are easier to judge, though even they depend on storage and season. You crack one into a dish and trust your nose before trusting the pan. Meat appears more often in households with money, while poorer families stretch small amounts through stews and pies. Leftovers return in new forms because waste is not a charming option. The cook or housewife develops knowledge that no printed manual can entirely replace. You know the smell of milk on the edge of turning. You know how butter should feel beneath the knife. You know which grocer gives fair weight and which one becomes offended whenever the scales are watched. This skill keeps the family fed, yet it is rarely described as expertise. It is simply what a competent woman is expected to know before the tea cools. The children eat without asking where the milk came from. Your husband reaches for another slice of toast and remarks that breakfast is good. The comment is kind, but it does not include the inspection, budgeting, storage, and quiet suspicion that made the meal possible. You pour more tea and look once more at the milk jug. Nothing has separated. No one feels ill. The butter remains convincing, which is the highest praise available before 8 in the morning. When the plates are cleared, a narrow book opens beside your hand. Coal has cost more than expected. The butcher's total is uncomfortable, and a child's boots have become too small with no respect for the monthly allowance. A middle-class wife may manage daily household spending while having little control over the family's larger income. She is expected to produce good meals and a respectable home without appearing troubled by arithmetic. Every purchase has consequences. Better meat may mean less coal later. A doctor's visit can unsettle the whole week. You move one figure into the margin and reconsider dinner. If the money lasts, nobody notices. If it fails, the account book becomes an unusually personal critic. The pages record the household in small amounts. Bread, milk, candles, soap, and repairs appear in careful lines. Some expenses arrive every week. Others wait until the budget has relaxed and then enter with excellent timing. A cracked saucepan, a leaking roof, or a school fee can undo several days of economy. You dip the pen and copy the grocer's total into the correct column. The ink blots slightly. The numbers do not. Household management is treated as part of feminine duty, especially among the middle classes. Advice books encourage wives to plan menus, compare prices, supervise servants, and prevent waste. The ideal manager is calm, economical, and able to produce comfort from limited funds without discussing the strain. She should understand the price of coal while appearing above commercial anxiety. This is a difficult expression to maintain when the coal merchant has raised his rate. Money may be given as a regular housekeeping allowance. In some marriages, the husband hands over enough for daily expenses and expects a clear account. In others, funds arrive irregularly, forcing the wife to ask for more when prices rise or children need clothing. The conversation can become humiliating because the need is domestic but the authority is personal. You are responsible for feeding the family, yet you may not control the income from which food is bought. The account book becomes proof that you have not been extravagant. It also becomes evidence that meat and soap continue costing money despite their lack of decorative purpose. Servants' wages appear in larger households, along with food, uniforms, and occasional medical needs. Hiring help saves the mistress from some physical work but creates another layer of management. A servant who leaves suddenly can throw the house into confusion. A skilled cook may earn more than expected because competence has value when dinner must appear every evening. You review the wage column and wonder whether another maid can be afforded. The answer depends partly on coal, which has already made its views clear. Clothing requires planning as well. Children outgrow garments quickly. Adult clothes are repaired, altered, and passed down where possible. A dress may be remade with new trim rather than replaced. Boots are resoled. Stockings are darned until the original thread becomes a minority. Respectability requires clean, suitable clothing. But respectability rarely offers to pay the tailor. Food is often the most flexible part of the budget, which means it absorbs every unexpected cost. A cheaper cut of meat can be stewed slowly. Bones become stock. Stale bread returns as pudding. Leftovers are folded into pies with enough gravy to make their history less important. These are not signs of failure. They are ordinary household intelligence. Still, there is only so much imagination available inside an empty pantry. You turn to the coal entry again. In winter, fuel competes directly with food. Closing unused rooms saves money. So does keeping the family near one fire. A cold bedroom may therefore be less a taste for fresh air than an accounting decision made in October. Illness creates the sharpest problem because it brings both cost and lost labour. A doctor's visit may require a fee. Medicine costs more. If a servant falls sick, another person must take over her duties. If you fall sick, the household may continue expecting management from the bed. The account book has no column for exhaustion, though it influences every figure. Small economies fill the rest of the page. Tea leaves may be used carefully. Candles are trimmed so they burn evenly. Soap scraps are saved rather than thrown away. A joint of meat is planned across more than one meal. None of these acts looks impressive in isolation. Together, they keep the household within its means. You become familiar with prices, seasons, and the exact moment a child's coat can no longer survive another patch. This knowledge is practical, detailed, and almost entirely taken for granted. You run one finger down the column and check the addition again. Arithmetic offers no sympathy, but it does at least remain honest about the shortage. You add the totals slowly. A few shillings remain if nothing else happens before the end of the week. This is an optimistic condition because something usually happens. You close the book and place it beside the keys. Dinner will use the cheaper cut. The parlour fire can wait until evening. The boots must be bought because feet are less willing than budgets to postpone growth. The household will appear unchanged. Only the menu and the temperature will know what has been sacrificed. The figures in the account book depend partly on how much help the household can afford. Downstairs, a maid has already cleaned the grate and carried water through the passage. In a larger home, domestic servants cook, wash, answer doors, and tend rooms before the family enters them. Their success is measured by how little of that effort remains visible. A general servant in a modest household may perform nearly every heavy task and sleep in a small attic room after a very long day. You supervise her because management is considered part of your role. She works because wages are necessary. The relationship can include trust, tension, kindness, and a great difference in power. By breakfast, the rooms look calm. Someone else has been moving since before dawn. Domestic service is one of the largest areas of women's paid employment in Victorian Britain. Girls and young women often enter service because other work is poorly paid, uncertain, or unavailable. A position can offer regular meals, lodging, and wages, but it also places the worker inside another family's rules. Her day may begin before the household wakes and end after its last lamp is lowered. Time off is often limited. A free afternoon, when granted, must be planned around the house's needs. Even personal letters may be written late at night, after the family has finished requiring clean rooms and hot water. Privacy can be little more than a narrow bed beneath the roof and a box for personal belongings. In a large house, rank shapes duty. A housekeeper supervises female staff. A cook controls the kitchen. Housemaids clean rooms and carry coal. Kitchen maids scrub pans and prepare food. The arrangement looks orderly on paper. In practice, every missing servant leaves work that another pair of hands must absorb. Your modest household may employ only one general servant. She rises early, lights fires, empties waste, and helps prepare breakfast. Later she washes dishes, makes beds, sweeps floors, and answers the door. There is no department to call when several tasks happen at once. The bell rings while a pan boils over, and the household discovers that one person cannot be in 3 places merely because etiquette would find it convenient. You are expected to supervise without appearing harsh. Advice manuals tell mistresses to be firm, fair, and morally guiding. Servants are often treated as younger dependents even when they are adults earning wages. Employers may inspect references, control visitors, and set strict rules about dress and conduct. A servant who becomes pregnant outside marriage can lose her place and reputation with alarming speed. The family she serves may consider itself generous while paying modest wages in exchange for nearly all her waking hours, yet the relationship is not always cold. A maid may remain with one household for years. She may nurse children, know family secrets, and provide companionship during illness. Affection can be genuine. Power remains unequal. She can care deeply for the family and still be dismissed with little notice. You meet her in the passage carrying a scuttle against one hip. Her hands are rough from soap and cold water. You ask whether the upstairs rooms are finished. She says they are nearly done, though the word nearly contains 2 beds, a grate and a washstand still waiting. You adjust the day's instructions. There will be no visitors before 3. The parlour can be left until after luncheon. Management means choosing which work will remain invisible first. Meals mark the difference between family and servant space. In many households, servants eat separately downstairs, often after serving the family. Their food may be plain but adequate. In less generous homes, portions are watched closely. Some employers lock tea, sugar, or other supplies because they fear waste or theft. The same family may trust a maid with children, silver, and private letters, while distrusting her near the jam. Bells connect the upper rooms to the working parts below. A pull beside the fireplace sends a wire through walls and rings in the service area. The family experiences this as convenience. The servant experiences it as another sound interrupting the task already in her hands. She climbs the stairs, receives the request, then returns to work that has not paused out of courtesy. You hear the bell later and realise it has been rung by a child for amusement. The child is corrected. The maid still made the journey. Servants also live under constant observation. A late return, a visitor at the back door, or a broken plate can become a judgment on character. References matter, so leaving one household badly may make the next position difficult to secure. Wages can be saved for marriage, sent home to parents, or used to support younger siblings. The small attic box may hold nearly everything she owns. By evening, the family will sit in clean rooms and speak about the comfort of home. The maid may still be polishing boots or preparing hot water for bed. If the house looks effortless, she has succeeded. If anyone notices the effort, she may be told to improve. Victorian domestic comfort is not natural. It is a performance produced by women whose names often disappear from the family story long before the furniture does. On wash day, hidden labour becomes impossible to miss. Steam gathers near the ceiling while linen waits beside the tub in heavy folds. Water must be heated before soap can begin its work. Collars need attention, and white fabric may be boiled before it is rinsed. A mechanical wringer removes water but introduces rollers that treat buttons and fingers with equal fairness. Wealthier households may employ a laundress or send washing elsewhere. The work has not vanished. It has entered another woman's day. By noon, your shoulders can identify every sheet separately. Clean linen will later appear upstairs looking peaceful and innocent. The kitchen knows better. Preparation begins before the first shirt meets water. Clothing is sorted by colour, fabric, and degree of disaster. Fine wool cannot be treated like sturdy linen. A coloured dress may run if the water is too hot. Lace needs care. Children's clothes tend to arrive with stains whose origin has been forgotten by everyone except the fabric. You soak the dirtiest pieces and inspect cuffs and collars where grime gathers most faithfully. Soap may be bought or made at home from fat and lye. Strong household soap cleans well and can leave the hands red, cracked, and painfully clean. Water is the first heavy ingredient. Buckets must be carried to the kitchen, then heated over the range or in a wash boiler. A large family creates enough laundry to fill the room before washing begins. Sheets, shirts, underclothes, towels, and table linen absorb water and become difficult to lift. The weight settles into the wrists and lower back. You push one piece beneath the surface with a wooden stick, keeping your face away from the steam. White cotton and linen may be boiled to remove dirt and brighten the cloth. The boiler turns the kitchen hot and damp even in winter. In summer, the same work can make the room punishing. Windows are opened, allowing soot and street smell to join the cleaning process. The washboard handles stubborn areas. You rub wet fabric across its ridged surface until soap foams around your fingers. The board saves some labour compared with rubbing cloth against cloth, but the shoulders remain unconvinced. Stains receive special treatment. Grease, ink, blood, and food each require different methods. Many learn through family practice rather than printed science. A mistake can set the stain permanently or damage a garment too costly to replace. Clothing is an investment. Wash day is therefore both cleaning and risk management. Rinsing requires more clean water. One rinse may not remove enough soap, especially from heavy pieces. Another bucket is fetched. Another load is lifted. Bluing can be added to the final water for white fabric. A tiny amount of blue colour makes yellowed linen look whiter. Too much leaves the family dressed as though it has recently joined a naval experiment. Starch follows for collars, cuffs and shirt fronts expected to stand with proper authority. The mixture must be smooth and evenly applied. Ironing will come later, using heavy flat irons heated on the stove. Several irons may be rotated because one cools while another heats. The handle can burn, the base can scorch. A moment of inattention may place a brown mark across a clean shirt that has already consumed half the day. Before ironing, water must be forced from the cloth. Hand wringing is hard work, especially with sheets. A wringer passes fabric between rollers turned by a crank. You feed the edge carefully and guide it through. Buttons can break, seams can twist, fingers must remain away from the narrowing gap. Useful machinery often arrives in Victorian homes with one clear promise and several smaller warnings. Outside, lines stretch across the yard. Wet sheets catch the wind and pull at the arms. In clear weather, sun and moving air help freshen the cloth. Rain can undo the plan in minutes. City soot may settle before the fabric dries. Winter is worse. Garments can freeze stiff on the line and return indoors shaped like the people who wore them, though far less willing to bend. A large household may employ a laundress for this work. Hotels, hospitals and commercial laundries handle even greater quantities, using machinery as the century advances. The machines increase output, but do not make the rooms cool or the labour gentle. Women stand for long hours among steam, heat, chemicals and moving rollers. Laundry day also changes the meals. The clock seems to move differently on wash day. Morning disappears into steam, and the afternoon begins before the first dry sheet has reached the basket. There is no clean ending to the task, only a gradual retreat of water from the room. The range is occupied, the kitchen is wet, and every clear surface has become part of the process. Dinner may be simpler because no one sensible wishes to prepare an elaborate sauce beside a boiler full of shirts. Children are kept away from hot water and rollers, which gives them an unusual interest in both. Upstairs, clean sheets appear on beds without any sign of the room where they became clean. You lift the final damp cloth from the tub and straighten slowly. Your arms ache. The floor is wet, the windows are clouded, and ironing still waits. Tomorrow someone will spill tea on a cuff. Laundry possesses a remarkable faith in its own future. The trail of soot leads back to the range, where dinner has begun long before anyone sits down to eat it. Heat must be judged by experience because the stove offers no helpful numbered dial. You feed the fire, adjust the draft, and move a pan to a hotter part of the iron surface. Skirts and sleeves must remain clear of flame. Burns are common, and a spark can become serious inside a room filled with wood and cloth. The oven may bake unevenly, leaving one side of a cake ready while the other remains philosophical. You open the door and feel the heat press against your face. Cooking is underway. So is household fire prevention. The range has been awake since early morning. Ash from the previous day was cleared before fresh paper and kindling could be laid beneath the coal. Once the fire caught, it needed feeding often enough to remain useful, but not so generously that the kitchen became unbearable. The draft below the grate controls how quickly air reaches the fuel. Open it too far and the coal burns eagerly, wasting heat and money. Close it too soon and the fire grows dull just as the kettle is expected to boil. You learn the range through habit. The colour of the coals, the sound of the flames, and the warmth against your palm tell you more than a printed instruction can. Every stove has its own temperament. One oven is hottest near the back. Another loses heat whenever the wind changes around the chimney. A cook who knows these faults can work around them. A visitor who does not may produce a loaf that is burned on one side and still considering its future on the other. Dinner is planned backward from the hour it must appear. A joint of meat can require several hours. Bread needs a steady oven. Puddings demand their own heat and a surprising amount of confidence. Vegetables can wait only briefly once cooked, so their pans are started later. The kitchen clock matters, but the fire has no interest in punctuality. You move a saucepan across the iron top, searching for a hotter place. The metal handle looks harmless and may already be hot enough to burn. Folded cloths remain close by, although they can also scorch if left beside the plate. Heavy iron pots hold heat well and require both hands when full. Steam escapes when you lift a lid. You turn your face aside and let it pass before checking the contents. A moment of care saves a painful afternoon. This is easier to remember before the third interruption. A child appears at the door. A delivery arrives. Someone asks where the household keys have gone. although they are hanging exactly where they always hang. The fire continues regardless. Long skirts make the kitchen more dangerous. A hem can brush the grate or catch a spark without immediate notice. Sleeves may pass too near a flame while you reach for a pan. Fire guards help where they are available, especially in rooms shared with children, but they do not remove the risk. Hot water can scald, fat can spit. Flat irons wait near the stove with handles that grow warmer by the minute. The kitchen gathers nearly every source of household heat into one crowded place and then expects you to move calmly among them. You keep the handles turned inward and the children beyond the busiest part of the floor. The room still finds new ways to test you. Baking requires patience because the oven door cannot be opened every few minutes without losing heat. You judge progress through smell and experience. The cake has risen, though the top remains pale. You rotate the tin, close the door, and hope the cooler corner will now become useful. There is no glass window through which to watch politely. The oven keeps its own counsel. Cleaning follows every stage. Coal dust settles on the range. Grease gathers around the cooking surface. Boiled starch, spilled milk, and gravy leave marks that harden if ignored. Ash must be carried away only when cold enough to trust. A hidden ember in a wooden box can start a fire long after the meal is finished. The range therefore cooks, heats water, dries cloth, and creates several jobs connected with its own existence. In a large household, the cook directs kitchen maids and scullery maids who clean pans, prepare vegetables, and carry fuel. The work is divided, but it does not become light. In a smaller home, you manage most of it yourself. By late afternoon, the room is hot enough to redden your face while the hallway beyond remains cold. Your hair is loosening at the temples. The dress at your back feels damp beneath its layers. Dinner must still enter the dining room looking composed. Dishes are covered and carried quickly. Meat can rest for a few minutes, but gravy has less patience. A husband arriving late may delay the meal, though the vegetables will usually receive the blame. You close the oven once more and listen. The kettle murmurs. A pan trembles gently at the lid. The scent of bread has deepened, and nothing has caught fire. For the moment the range is behaving. Victorian cooking asks for skill, strength, and constant attention, then rewards you by making the meal look as though it simply appeared. Once food leaves the range, keeping it safe becomes a second kind of work. The pantry is cooler than the kitchen, but summer warmth still reaches the shelves. Meat must be used quickly. Milk can sour, and yesterday's dish may not survive another confident appearance at dinner. An icebox helps in homes that can afford one and live within reach of regular ice delivery. Other households rely on a cellar, careful covering, and preserved food. You learn to notice changes in smell and texture because no printed date will settle the matter for you. Waste is costly. Illness is worse. You lift the cloth from a dish and pause. The household is waiting for your verdict. A well-planned larder sits on the cooler side of the house, away from the range and direct afternoon sun. Stone or slate shelves help keep food below the temperature of the kitchen. Small vents allow air to move, though they also need wire screens or careful covering if flies are to remain outside. A perforated meat safe keeps insects away while allowing some air to move. It cannot stop summer. It merely asks summer to proceed more slowly. Fresh meat may be bought in modest amounts and cooked soon after it arrives. Milk is delivered regularly in towns or brought in from a nearby dairy. Butter is kept in the coolest place available. Leftovers are planned for the next meal rather than stored with faith in an invisible machine. You know which foods can wait and which are already becoming urgent. Meat demands the closest attention. The butcher may be reliable, but even good meat changes quickly in warm weather. You examine colour and surface, then lean closer for the smell. It is the final inspection before the family eats. A joint bought in the morning may need roasting that afternoon. Cooked meat can return in a pie or hash, provided it still seems sound. Waste presses against the fear of sickness. You stand between them with more authority than the meal appears to deserve. Milk is equally difficult. It may arrive in a household jug after being ladled from a larger can. Each transfer creates a chance for dirt or delay. If the supply has been watered, you may never know. If the water was contaminated, the danger is greater than the fraud. Warm milk sours quickly, and children are especially vulnerable to dirty supplies. Boiling can make milk safer, but the practice is not universal and changes the flavour. By the later 19th century, Doctors and reformers are pressing for cleaner dairies and better inspection. Your nose remains part of the public health system, with no salary and very little ceremony. Some prosperous urban households use ice chests or ice boxes, especially where commercial ice can be delivered. The cabinet does not create cold. A block of ice slowly melts inside an insulated compartment while cooler air settles around the food. Meltwater drains into a pan that must be emptied. If the delivery is late or the block is too small, the cabinet becomes a damp cupboard with excellent intentions. Standing in front of it while deciding what to cook wastes coal that was purchased by weight. In many British homes, a cool pantry or cellar remains more practical. Rural households may use spring water or shaded out buildings. None offers certainty. Preservation, therefore, carries much of the burden. Meat can be salted, smoked, or potted beneath fat. Fruit becomes jam or bottled preserves. Vegetables are pickled. Eggs may be preserved for seasons when laying slows. These methods work when clean equipment and sound ingredients are used. A poor seal can spoil a jar. Too little salt can ruin meat. A bottle may look perfect while something inside has quietly changed. You learn to watch for cloudiness, swelling, mould, and unexpected smells. No book can inspect the jar in your hand. Dry goods bring their own troubles. Flour attracts weevils. Mice find sacks, crumbs, and any cupboard believed to be secure. Sugar must be covered, partly against insects and partly against children who regard household stores as a private arrangement between themselves and opportunity. Cheese needs cool air without being left open. Bread dries or moulds according to the weather. Apples and root vegetables can keep well in a cellar, but one rotten piece must be removed before it convinces its neighbours. You check the shelves often because decay rarely makes an appointment. Cleanliness matters. Spills are wiped immediately, cloth covers are washed, and shelves are scrubbed before old smells settle into the wood. Yet strong cleaning agents must not contaminate food. Poison used against rats brings danger of its own in a room where servants and children move freely. Poverty narrows every choice. A wealthy family can buy fresh food often and discard anything doubtful. A poor household may depend on cheaper cuts, bruised produce, or leftovers kept near their limit. Hunger makes caution difficult. Waste can mean no dinner. Illness can mean lost wages and a doctor's fee. You look again at the covered dish. The surface is dry, the smell ordinary, and the room remained cool overnight. It can be reheated thoroughly and served in a new form. You return the cloth and move the dish to the front of the shelf. Dinner has been rescued from waste, though not from suspicion. The pantry grows quiet again. Everything inside is waiting, and some of it is waiting more patiently than others. The pantry door closes just as a small crash comes from upstairs. In the nursery, a child has reached an object that was considered safely out of reach until this exact moment. Open fires, steep stairs, and unsecured windows make childhood an active negotiation with the house. Paint on toys may contain harmful materials. Pins and buttons remain deeply interesting to anyone young enough to swallow them. Mothers, nurses, and older siblings divide the work of supervision, often while completing other duties. Affection is constant. Attention cannot always be. You remove the object from a determined hand and move it to a higher shelf. The child watches carefully. Research for the next attempt has begun. The nursery is meant to keep children together in a room suited to them, but Victorian ideas of suitability remain generous toward danger. A coal fire warms the space behind a guard if the household owns one and remembers to place it correctly. The grate still holds hot iron, ash, and sparks. A child learning to walk can cross the rug far more quickly than dignity would suggest. Nightclothes and pinafores are loose enough to catch flame, and fabric burns with frightening speed. You pull the fireguard forward and check that it rests firmly. The youngest child immediately reaches toward the bars to discover whether the arrangement applies personally. Furniture creates quieter risks. A washstand can tip. A chair becomes a climbing aid as soon as an adult looks away. Heavy objects sit on shelves that were never designed with determined small hands in mind. You collect the pieces from the floor and find that only a wooden toy has broken. One wheel has split. This is a relief. Wood can be sanded and the wheel repaired. Small household objects are less forgiving. Pins, hooks, buttons, beads, and scraps of metal gather in workboxes because almost everything is mended rather than thrown away. Adults see useful materials. Children see items that might improve through tasting. Toys themselves are not always harmless. Bright paint may contain lead or other poisonous pigments. A wooden soldier can look cheerful while carrying chemistry no nursery would now welcome. Standards are weak, and danger is often recognised only after repeated illness or public concern. You wipe the toy and place it aside. The red coat remains very convincing. Windows require attention, especially on an upper floor. A low sash invites leaning, and safety catches are not universal. In summer, the need for fresh air competes with the need to keep everyone inside the building. You open the window only a little and move the nearby chair. The room receives some air without gaining an exit. Stairs are equally appealing. Gates may be improvised, but many homes depend on closed doors and an adult remembering where every child was 5 seconds ago. A nursemaid carrying a baby can be called by another child from below. A mother working in the kitchen cannot remain on the landing all afternoon. Supervision, therefore, passes between women and older children. A nursemaid may be young herself, perhaps only in her early teens, yet responsible for several smaller children while keeping their clothes clean and their tempers manageable. Older daughters help because family labour begins long before adulthood. Their care can be patient and skilled. Their attention is still human. Medicines and household chemicals add another layer of worry. Laudanum, lamp oil, disinfectants, matches, and cleaning powders may be stored in ordinary bottles or cupboards. Labels can be small or absent. A tired adult reaches for the wrong bottle. A child discovers something sweet-smelling. Poisoning accidents happen because dangerous substances live close to daily life. You move the medicine bottle farther back and test the stopper. The shelf is not locked. It is merely above the height reached this morning. Hot water brings risk before a bath even begins. Kettles and jugs travel from the range to the nursery, carried through passages where someone may turn a corner suddenly. A shallow tub still needs close watching. You test the water with your hand and keep the child away until it cools. Household safety is built from such small acts, repeated until everyone is old enough to survive the furniture. Illness can turn the nursery into a sick room within a day. Measles, scarlet fever, whooping cough, and diphtheria move easily through households where children share rooms and cups. Vaccination against smallpox exists and is required under law, though enforcement and public acceptance vary. For many other diseases, families depend on isolation, cleanliness, ventilation, and luck. You learn to notice a flushed cheek, a change in breathing, or a child who has become unusually still. The early signs matter because treatment is limited and a doctor may not arrive quickly. Yet the nursery is not only a catalogue of danger, it is also stories beside the fire, warm bread on a tray, and the heavy trust of a sleepy child leaning against your shoulder. Victorian parents love their children as deeply as parents in any age. They simply raise them in homes where ordinary objects demand closer attention. You sit on the floor and turn the broken wheel in your fingers. The child watches, suddenly quiet. Together you examine the damage. In a moment, the toy will be repaired or forgotten. The button has been recovered. The window is secure. Nothing serious has happened, which means the nursery has enjoyed a very successful morning. The child begins crying and does not appear interested in stopping for historical context. A bottle stands on the nursery shelf, advertised for teething or restlessness. Some Victorian children's remedies contain alcohol or opiates, including preparations made with laudanum. They can quiet a child because the ingredients are powerful drugs. Clear dosing advice and modern safety controls are still far away. Parents often trust familiar products, especially when medical care is expensive or difficult to reach. The label sounds comforting. Time. The contents deserve more caution than the advertisement provides. You hold the spoon beneath the lamplight and measure carefully. The room needs sleep. The medicine carries risks nobody has explained properly. Proprietary medicines fill shop windows with promises. They claim to ease coughs, settle stomachs, strengthen nerves, and calm babies who have failed to respect the household schedule. Some mixtures are little more than syrup and herbs. Others contain alcohol, opium, morphine, or substances with equally serious effects. The full formula may remain secret. You are asked to trust the name, the printed testimonial, and the picture of a peaceful child. Peace is easier to print than a warning. Laudanum is a tincture of opium in alcohol. Adults use it for pain, diarrhea, coughs, and sleeplessness. It is widely available during much of the 19th century and can be bought from chemists under rules that gradually become stricter. Used carefully, it may relieve severe suffering. Used too freely, it can slow breathing, create dependence, or kill. Infants are especially vulnerable because the safe margin is narrow and household spoons are not precise instruments. The liquid in your bottle is dark and sweetened enough to appear friendly. Familiar preparations such as Godfrey's cordial have long been given to babies for colic and restlessness. Other soothing syrups make similar claims. Working mothers may rely on them when an infant must be left with a carer during a long shift. A quiet baby seems easier to protect in a crowded home where adults are exhausted and every cry travels through thin walls. The choice is not proof of careless parenting. It belongs to a world with weak regulation, little rest, and medical help that may cost more than the family can spare. Advertisements strengthen the trust. Newspapers carry testimonials from grateful mothers who describe nights restored to calm. Makers present their products as gentle household aids rather than potent drugs. The language remains soft. A baby is merely fretful. A mother is tired. A spoonful returns peace to the nursery. The gap between the words and the chemistry stays inside the bottle. The Pharmacy Act of 1868 places opium and certain other poisons under tighter controls when sold as poisons, but patent and proprietary medicines are not suddenly made transparent. Familiar products continue circulating, and the exact amount of opium in one mixture may differ from another. A chemist can advise you, though advice varies with knowledge and care. Regulation has begun. The nursery shelf has not been cleared by magic, and the measuring spoon remains no wiser. You look at the child again. The crying has softened for a moment without the spoon. Perhaps the discomfort is hunger. Perhaps a tooth is coming through. Teething receives blame for fever, diarrhea, sleeplessness, and nearly every other trouble of infancy. Some discomfort truly belongs to the gums. Other symptoms signal infection or illness that a sedative may hide rather than cure. Quiet is not proof of recovery. It may simply mean the child no longer has the strength to protest. You touch the forehead with the back of your hand. The skin feels warm though the room is close. A doctor can be called if the fever rises, but the visit requires money and may take time. The local chemist is nearer. An older relative recommends the bottle because it worked for 3 children, all of whom are now alive and therefore considered excellent evidence. The label suggests another dose. Advice gathers around the cot while certainty remains elsewhere. You try simpler comforts first. The child is lifted and rocked. A little milk is offered. A cool cloth touches the forehead. The window is opened slightly, though not enough to create the dreaded draught blamed for almost every illness that enters a respectable room. The crying returns, but less sharply. Fatigue shows in the small face. You set the spoon on the table without using it. Another mother might decide differently, and not from indifference. The danger is difficult to judge when a strong drug is sold as ordinary comfort. Adults face the same confusion. Cough mixtures and nerve tonics can contain ingredients that work powerfully while being described gently. A woman may begin taking laudanum for menstrual pain or sleeplessness, and continue because stopping becomes difficult. Dependence can develop beneath the appearance of respectable treatment. The bottle sits beside clean linen and a hairbrush. Nothing about it looks like a crisis. That is part of its success. The child finally settles against your shoulder, breathing evenly. You remain still until the small body grows heavy with sleep. Then you place the bottle farther back on the shelf. Its label has promised peace. For tonight, patience has done the work, and patience is the only remedy in the room that forgot to charge you. Not every private discomfort belongs to the nursery. A familiar ache settles low in your body, and you quietly change the day's arrangements. Menstruation is ordinary, but polite conversation gives it very little room. Folded cloth or specially prepared pads must be washed, dried, and stored without inviting notice. Pain may be treated with warmth or simply endured. Household work does not pause. The stairs still need climbing, and dinner will not accept a note explaining that the cook feels unwell. Women share practical knowledge quietly, often within families. Public advice is less useful. You move carefully through the bedroom and close a drawer. Half the adult population understands the routine. Respectability prefers not to hear about it. The linen inside the drawer has been softened by repeated washing. You fold it into the shape that experience has taught you, then secure it beneath your clothing. Methods vary. Some women use folded rags held in place by undergarments. Others use belts or specially made supports. Commercial menstrual products begin appearing during the later 19th century, but they are not yet common in every home and may be expensive or awkward to obtain. Most management remains domestic. The materials are prepared privately, used quietly, then washed for another month. This creates a problem rarely mentioned in household manuals with any warmth. The cloth must be rinsed, boiled when possible, and dried thoroughly. A servant sharing an attic room has little privacy. A working family may sleep several people to one chamber. Hanging the linen openly invites embarrassment. Hiding it beneath other washing slows the drying and can leave it damp. You choose a discreet place near the warmth and hope nobody rearranges the room in a sudden burst of helpfulness. Knowledge passes from woman to woman, though the language is often indirect. A girl approaching puberty may receive instructions from her mother, sister, aunt, or employer. She may also hear warnings about cold baths, strenuous exercise, strong emotion, or too much study. Some advice is practical. Much of it grows from broad theories about female weakness. Doctors often treat menstruation as central to women's physical and emotional health, then use it to explain complaints that may have other causes. The ordinary monthly cycle becomes evidence in arguments about education, work, and proper behaviour. You are told the body requires rest. The house is told nothing. Pain differs greatly from one woman to another. For some, the discomfort is mild. For others, cramps, headache, nausea, or heavy bleeding make work difficult. There is no dependable relief. A hot brick wrapped in cloth or a warmed bottle may ease the ache. Herbal teas and household remedies are tried. Laudanum and other opiate preparations may be used for severe pain, bringing the same risks already waiting in the medicine cupboard. A doctor might prescribe a tonic, rest, or changes in diet. He may also explain that suffering belongs naturally to your sex and should be borne with patience. This is not a cure, though it is often delivered in the tone of one. You sit near the fire and wait for the cramp to loosen. A child calls from the landing, water reaches a boil below stairs. Someone knocks at the back door. None of these events is cruel. They simply assume your body remains available. Domestic labour offers no formal leave, and menstruation does not alter the dinner hour. If you employ a maid, you may hand heavier work to her, though she has the same body and less freedom to refuse. A laundress works through pain while standing in steam. A factory worker remains beside the machine because wages stop when she does. A farm wife still tends animals. Class changes the room, not the calendar. Clothing makes the routine harder. Layers provide some security, and dark skirts may hide a stain, but long days away from home require planning. Public lavatories for women are scarce in many places, especially earlier in the century. A visit, train journey, or shopping trip must be arranged with this in mind. You carry spare cloth discreetly if you can. A sudden stain can bring humiliation because the subject is treated as both private and somehow shameful. The fear of discovery may become more tiring than the discomfort itself. Menstruation also carries emotional meaning. A missed period can bring hope, fear, or both. Regular bleeding may reassure a woman who cannot afford another child. For someone longing for pregnancy, its return can feel like a quiet loss that still needs washing before breakfast. These feelings have little public language. They remain folded beside the linen in the drawer. Severe or unusual bleeding can signal illness, but women may delay seeking help because examinations are embarrassing. Doctors are expensive, and pain has been normalized. You learn your own pattern and notice when it changes. This practical knowledge matters, though it receives little formal respect. By late morning, the worst ache begins to ease. You stand slowly and smooth the front of your dress. Downstairs, work is waiting in familiar places. You know when to change the cloth, how to clean it, and how to continue without leaving visible evidence. This knowledge belongs to millions of women and appears in very few household portraits. By evening, the used linen will be soaking out of sight. The family will remember that dinner arrived. The day will not record what it cost you to stand beside the table. When the expected bleeding does not come, the household begins to change before anyone speaks plainly. Pregnancy may be described as a delicate condition or an approaching confinement. Clothing is adjusted as the body grows. and public appearances may lessen during the later months. Advice arrives from older women with great confidence and mixed value. Prenatal medicine is limited. So much care depends on rest, food, observation, and experience passed within families. Some women receive support. Others continue heavy household work because there is no one to replace them. You pause on the stairs with one hand against your back. The family is pleased about the coming child. Your body has been given most of the practical arrangements. At first, the signs remain uncertain. A missed monthly bleeding may suggest pregnancy, but cycles can change for other reasons, and no simple home test is waiting in a packet. Nausea, tiredness, and changes in appetite provide clues without offering proof. You count the weeks privately and watch for further changes. A doctor or midwife may be consulted, though many women simply wait until the body makes the answer clearer. Quickening the first movement of the child that you can feel often brings stronger certainty. Before that moment, hope and fear can sit together for months without introducing themselves properly. The news is shared carefully. Your husband may be delighted, worried about money, or both. Older children notice that you tire more easily and ask questions the household answers with varying success. Respectable conversation avoids plain language. You are not expected to discuss reproduction openly at breakfast, even when reproduction has begun rearranging your entire day. Clothing must adapt. Corsets made for pregnancy exist, and ordinary ones may be loosened or altered. Some women continue wearing supportive garments, though tight pressure becomes uncomfortable and draws criticism from doctors and dress reformers. Bodices are let out. Skirts are adjusted. Older dresses are remade because a separate wardrobe for pregnancy is a luxury. A skilled hand can hide extra panels beneath folds or trim, allowing the dress to preserve modesty while the body ignores its former measurements. Sewing makes the change possible. It does not make the stairs easier. Household duties continue. The account book, children, meals, and servants remain where they were. In a prosperous home, others take over lifting and heavy cleaning. A poorer wife may still carry water, scrub floors, work in a shop, or stand at a factory machine. Farm women continue seasonal labour for as long as strength allows. Advice to rest is easiest to follow when another person is available to perform the task you have stopped doing. Without that help, rest becomes one more ideal described in a book and postponed in the kitchen. Food advice is shaped by custom and income. You are encouraged to eat nourishing meals if the household can afford them. Appetite may vanish in the morning and return at inconvenient hours. Familiar cooking smells can become unbearable. Cravings attract stories and speculation. People warn that fright, strong emotion, or disturbing sights may mark the unborn child, placing fresh responsibility on a woman already carrying enough. The advice sounds protective while making you answerable for events no one can control. Medical care before birth is limited compared with later practice. A doctor may be called for bleeding, severe pain, or illness. Midwives and experienced women often provide the most regular guidance. They ask about swelling, strength, movement, and earlier births. They may recommend rest or changes in diet. Blood pressure is not routinely checked in the modern way, and some dangerous conditions remain poorly understood until symptoms become severe. You learn to notice changes because the body is sending most of the reports itself. Pregnancy can still bring deep warmth into the household. Tiny clothes are cut from soft fabric. A cradle is aired and repaired. Older children place a hand against your dress and wait for movement with unusual patience. Yet joy sits beside fear. Maternal death is common enough that most families know a woman who did not survive childbirth. Infant loss is equally familiar. Preparation is hopeful but careful. People avoid assuming that every happy beginning will remain one. This knowledge does not weaken affection. It makes hope quieter. Social class shapes the months before birth. A wealthy woman may withdraw from public life later in pregnancy and receive visitors at home. A working woman has less room for such privacy. Her body remains visible because wages require her presence. She may leave employment when she can no longer continue, losing income just as expenses grow. Family help, charity, or lying in institutions may offer support, though access varies and assistance can come with rules. You move more slowly as the months pass. Sleep becomes difficult. Heartburn arrives after meals, and the child presses beneath the ribs while everyone recommends calm breathing. You pause beside the window and loosen the bodice slightly. Outside, carts continue through the street. Inside, the household has begun measuring time toward the birth. Linen must be sorted. The cradle is not ready. Your husband has started suggesting names, which is the part of pregnancy he can manage while seated. You rest one hand on the moving child. The future gives one firm kick, then leaves you to carry it upstairs. Months later, clean linen is stacked near the bed, and the household has lowered its voice. Most Victorian women give birth at home, often attended by a midwife, female relatives, or a doctor when money and custom allow. Skilled help matters, but childbirth remains dangerous. Heavy bleeding, obstructed labour, and infection can become fatal with frightening speed. Antiseptic practice grows during the later 19th century, although knowledge does not reach every home at once. You listen to instructions while footsteps move quietly beyond the door. The room is warm. The water has been prepared. Everyone expects new life, yet nobody can promise the path will be safe. Labour may begin with a dull pain that seems uncertain, then returns with greater purpose. The midwife watches the intervals and encourages you to save your strength. She has attended many births and knows the difference between slow progress and a sign that something is wrong. Her knowledge is practical, built from experience, and whatever training was available locally. Midwifery is not yet regulated across Britain in the modern way. Some attendants are highly skilled, others have learned informally, and rely on customs of mixed value. The family chooses from whoever is trusted, affordable, and near enough to arrive before the child does. The bedroom has been prepared as carefully as the household can manage. Fresh sheets cover the bed, with older cloths placed where they will be needed. Water heats near the fire. Towels, a basin, and scissors wait close by. The room is kept warm for the baby, though the heat can make labour more tiring. Windows may remain closed because fresh air is feared as a draught. When several women gather, the room becomes close and heavy. You smell soap, coal, and hot linen. The midwife's hands move with steady purpose. Clean hands matter greatly, but the importance of antisepsis is still spreading through medicine. By the 1880s, the work of Joseph Lister and others has made antiseptic practice far more influential in surgery. Childbirth care remains uneven. A careful doctor may wash thoroughly and use clean instruments. Another may bring habits learned before germs were understood. Puerperal fever, an infection following childbirth, has killed many women in private homes and lying in hospitals. The danger can be carried by the very hands meant to help. You cannot see it. You can only notice whether the attendant treats cleanliness as a serious duty rather than a decorative idea. Most births proceed without instruments. You shift position, grip the bed, and follow the rhythm of pain. Women may labour lying down, sitting, kneeling, or supported by others, depending on comfort and custom. The tidy picture of a woman resting quietly in bed belongs more to the hours after birth than those before it. Labour is physical work. It can continue through the night and well into the following day. Between pains, you drift towards sleep. Then the body begins again. A doctor may be called if progress stops. Bleeding becomes heavy, or the child appears badly positioned. Forceps can save lives when used skillfully. They can also injure mother or child when used badly. The instrument must be applied in a room with limited light and no modern monitoring. Anesthesia is available. Chloroform has been used in childbirth since the middle of the century and became more socially acceptable after Queen Victoria received it. Some doctors embrace it. Others worry about safety or believe labour pain has a natural purpose. Access depends on money, place, and who attends the birth. Relief exists, but it does not arrive equally. You may be offered a little chloroform if the doctor believes it useful. The smell is sharp and unfamiliar. Complete unconsciousness is not always intended. The aim may be to dull the worst pain while keeping the birth moving. Every decision is made within the room, using the knowledge and equipment at hand. Outside, the household waits through sounds it cannot interpret. Your husband may remain elsewhere, excluded by custom and perhaps privately grateful for it. Female relatives carry messages. The kettle is refilled. Older children are kept away from the door. Domestic life continues in lowered tones while the bedroom becomes the centre of the house. At last, the effort changes. The midwife gives firmer instructions. You bear down, exhausted enough that time loses its edges. Then the room receives a new sound. A thin cry rises, sudden and strong, and everyone breathes differently. The baby is wrapped and examined. The cord is tied and cut. The placenta must still be delivered, and bleeding watched carefully. Birth is not finished at the first cry, though relief makes everyone wish it were. The midwife feels the abdomen and checks the cloths. Heavy bleeding is one of the greatest dangers. Ergot preparations may be used in some cases to help the womb contract, but skill, speed and luck still matter. You lie back against the pillows while the baby is brought near. The face is red, folded, and entirely unimpressed by the work required for its arrival. Beyond the door, the family hears that both mother and child are alive. This is the news everyone wanted. The room relaxes, but only slightly. The fire needs tending. The bed must be changed. Your body has crossed a dangerous threshold and must now recover. New life has entered the house, bringing joy, exhaustion, and several more hours of careful watching. The child is finally asleep beside you, but childbirth has not ended simply because the room is quiet. Your body needs time to recover. In a prosperous household, relatives and servants may protect that rest. A poorer wife can be forced back toward work long before she feels strong. Feeding brings another decision. You may nurse the baby, employ a wet nurse if the household can afford one, or use animal milk in feeding vessels that are difficult to clean safely. Visitors ask after the child while your own condition receives gentler wording. You lie still and listen to the house continuing without you. Recovery is happening. It has been treated as a private domestic matter. The first hours are watched closely. Bleeding should lessen. Fever must not appear. The womb begins contracting, bringing fresh waves of pain that nobody mentions when describing the happiness of motherhood. After a long labour, your body has little interest in congratulations from the drawing room. It wants water, warmth, clean linen, and enough silence to remember what rest feels like. Confinement traditionally keeps a woman in bed or largely within her room for a period after birth, followed by a gradual return to household life. The exact length varies by health, class, family custom, and the number of people available to help. A wealthy mother may spend weeks protected from ordinary duties. A working woman may rise within days because meals, washing, children, or wages cannot wait. Advice books recommend rest more easily than households provide it. Trays arrive with broth, tea, bread, or other foods believed to restore strength. A mother, sister, nurse, or servant helps wash you and changes the bed linen. Privacy is limited, though the language remains careful. The body is treated through basins, cloths, and lowered voices. Bleeding and discharge after birth must be managed with clean material. If linen is not changed, or hands are unclean, infection can follow. Puerperal fever remains a feared danger. A rising temperature, worsening pain, foul discharge, or confusion can signal serious illness. By the later 19th century, antiseptic ideas are improving care, but not every home or practitioner follows them reliably. You notice each chill because families know how quickly a woman can worsen after seeming well. The baby brings its own demands. Breastfeeding is common and encouraged in many households, though health, fashion, work, and class shape the choice. You guide the child toward the breast and wait through the uncertain first attempt. Feeding can hurt at the beginning. Nipples crack. Milk may be slow to come. Advice arrives at once from women who remember their own methods as perfectly simple. A calm helper can make the difference between reassurance and despair. Some wealthy women employ wet nurses, especially when illness or custom discourages nursing. A wet nurse may live in the house or feed the child elsewhere. Her own baby may be cared for by relatives or weaned early, a difficult cost hidden behind another family's convenience. By the later Victorian period, maternal breastfeeding is praised more strongly in many circles, but wet nursing has not disappeared. Class allows one woman's body to solve another woman's problem. Artificial feeding is possible and often dangerous. Cow's milk may be diluted or altered for an infant, though exact knowledge is limited. Feeding bottles with long rubber tubes are convenient because the child can draw milk while lying down. They are also notoriously difficult to clean. Residue remains inside the tube, where bacteria grow beyond the reach of an ordinary rinse. Some bottles gain grim reputations because infants fed from them become sick. Boiling the equipment helps, but that requires fuel, clean water, and a clear understanding of why cleaning matters. You inspect the bottle and decide to nurse again. Visitors create another kind of pressure. Relatives want to see the baby. Neighbours send inquiries. The father enters with pride and caution, holding the child as though he has been handed a warm parcel of legal importance. People admire the fingers, the hair, and the suspected family resemblance. Your face may be pale with exhaustion, yet conversation turns naturally toward the infant. Motherhood has begun by moving you slightly away from the centre of your own bed. Emotional recovery receives even less attention. Some women feel joy immediately. Others feel numb, frightened, or deeply sad. Exhaustion can make every cry feel impossible. Severe mental illness after childbirth is recognised during the 19th century, though explanations and treatments vary. Terms such as puerperal mania or melancholia may be used when symptoms become extreme. Families can hide the condition from shame or seek care that removes a woman from home. Milder sadness and fear are easier to dismiss as weakness. You may cry without knowing why and be told that rest will settle everything. Rest would help. It arrives in pieces measured by the baby. Days pass within the room. You sit up for longer, then stand beside the bed while someone steadies your arm. The body feels unfamiliar, softer and less reliable. Household questions begin travelling upstairs. The cook needs an answer. A child wants you. The account book has discovered that babies require supplies. One morning you dress and move toward the landing. The house greets you with relief, as though its manager has returned from a pleasant holiday. You take the banister carefully. Confinement is ending. The work has already resumed. If the weakness continues, a doctor may be called to the house. You describe pain, poor sleep, or a sadness that has no easy name. Some physicians listen carefully and offer the best help available. Others interpret women's symptoms through broad ideas about delicate nerves and reproductive health. A physical illness can be overlooked when the explanation of female weakness is already waiting. Tonics, rest, or sedating medicines may be prescribed. The examination itself is shaped by strict ideas of modesty, which can make honest discussion difficult. You know what the body feels like from inside. The doctor has medical training and several assumptions brought from outside. The consultation now depends on which one speaks louder. He arrives carrying a leather bag, and the authority of a profession changing quickly. The visit itself costs money, so you may have waited until the symptoms became difficult to ignore. Calling a doctor too soon can seem wasteful. Calling too late can turn economy into regret. By the middle of the 1880s, doctors know far more about infection, anatomy, and disease than physicians did earlier in the century. Anesthesia has transformed surgery. Antiseptic practice is spreading. Laboratories are beginning to influence diagnosis. Yet many treatments remain uncertain, and women's complaints are still filtered through ideas about sex, nerves, and proper social roles. The doctor takes your pulse and studies the tongue. He asks about appetite, sleep, bleeding, childbirth, and recent strain. The questions may be useful. The manner can still suggest that the body has become a report on character. You choose your words carefully. Pain low in the abdomen is easier to mention than fear. Sleeplessness sounds respectable. Anger is more difficult. A woman who says she feels trapped may be heard as ungrateful. A woman who says she feels weak can be given a tonic. The second complaint fits the medicine shelf more neatly. Physical examination is limited by modesty and custom. A doctor may ask indirect questions or examine through clothing rather than inspect closely. For gynecological problems, instruments and internal examinations exist, but many patients find the process embarrassing or frightening. A female relative or servant may remain in the room. Women doctors are entering the profession, but they are still few and face serious barriers to training and practice. For most patients, the physician is male, and the conversation crosses both medical and social distance. Broad diagnoses can gather many symptoms together. Hysteria has a long history and may be used for fainting, pain, paralysis, seizures, or emotional distress when no clear physical cause is found. Neurasthenia, often described as nervous exhaustion, becomes fashionable among some middle and upper class patients. These labels can reassure you that the suffering is real. They can also hide anemia, thyroid disease, infection, heart trouble, depression, or the effects of overwork. If the doctor expects nerves, he may stop looking once nerves appear available. You mention heavy bleeding and constant tiredness. He considers anemia and asks about food. This is useful. Iron preparations may help, though they can upset the stomach. He also recommends fresh air, rest, and freedom from household worry. The advice sounds pleasant. The household has not been told that worry is suspended. Tonics are common. Some contain iron, quinine, alcohol, or mixtures advertised to strengthen the blood and nerves. Patent medicines make even wider claims. A bottle may promise relief for female weakness without explaining the formula clearly. Doctors can prescribe opiates or chloral hydrate for pain and sleeplessness, although dependence and overdose are real risks. Sedation may make distress quieter without changing its cause. The patient appears calmer. The marriage, work, damp house, or poverty remains fully awake. Rest cures are used for certain nervous conditions, especially among wealthier women. Treatment may involve isolation, bed rest, rich food, massage, and strict limits on reading or writing. Some patients improve. Others find enforced inactivity unbearable. A working-class woman is unlikely to receive weeks in a private room with professional care. Her prescription may be to continue until she cannot. Class decides which form of medical advice can actually be followed. The doctor listens to your chest and asks whether the house is damp. This question matters. Smoke, mold, cold, and poor ventilation contribute to illness. Tuberculosis remains common. A persistent cough is watched with fear. Yet moving to a drier house or taking sea air belongs mainly to families with money and time. You may instead open the bedroom window briefly and hope the soot is less harmful than the damp. Medical care can still be kind and effective. A careful doctor recognizes infection, sets fractures, vaccinates against smallpox, and knows when surgery is necessary. He may encourage cleaner childbirth practice and safer water. The profession includes thoughtful practitioners as well as confident men using weak evidence. You are not meeting simple ignorance in a black coat. You are meeting knowledge that has advanced unevenly and carries the beliefs of its age. Before leaving, the doctor writes a prescription and repeats that rest is essential. You ask how often to take the medicine. He explains the dose, then reminds you not to overexert yourself. Downstairs, a saucepan begins boiling over. The baby has started crying, and someone wants the household keys. You thank him at the door. The consultation has ended. The rest cure will begin as soon as everybody else stops needing you. Medical authority is not the only kind that shapes the household. At the bank, a polished counter separates you from money that may legally belong to you but still feels socially supervised. Earlier in the Victorian period, marriage placed much of a wife's property under her husband's control. Reforms during the 19th century gave married women stronger rights to keep earnings and own property in their own names. By the 1880s, the law has changed significantly. Daily habits are slower. A husband may still control the main income, and a wife without private earnings remains dependent on what he provides. Parliament has improved your legal position. The rent remains due in ordinary currency. For much of British legal history, the doctrine of coverture treated a married woman's legal identity as joined to that of her husband. The exact effect varied with property arrangements and class, and wealthy families could use trusts or marriage settlements to protect assets. Still, the general rule placed wives at a serious disadvantage. Personal property and earnings could fall under a husband's control. Making contracts independently was difficult. A single woman or widow often had more legal freedom than a married woman, an arrangement that allowed marriage to reduce rights rather than enlarge them. By the time you stand at the counter in the middle of the 1880s, major reforms have altered this position. The Married Women's Property Act of 1870 allowed wives to keep certain earnings and forms of property. The Broader Act of 1882 treated a married woman's property as her own in a much fuller legal sense. She could own, buy and sell property, enter contracts, and sue or be sued more independently. The change is substantial. It does not make every clerk enthusiastic. You place a small bundle of papers on the counter. The money may come from an inheritance, wages, or income from property. The clerk reads your name and notices that you are married. His questions may be proper business. They may also carry the older assumption that a husband stands behind every financial decision. Law can change in Parliament. Habit prefers a longer notice period. Banking itself is shaped by class. A wealthy woman with investments and a family solicitor enters a different world from a seamstress carrying a few saved shillings. Many working people use savings banks, friendly societies, building societies, or informal household arrangements rather than private banks designed for larger clients. A married woman who earns wages may now keep them legally, but practical control still depends on the marriage. A husband can pressure her to hand them over. Respectability may continue defining him as provider and household head, even when her income pays the grocer. The new law gives her a claim. It does not stand beside her at the kitchen table. Household money remains divided into visible and hidden parts. Your husband may receive the main income and give you an allowance for food, fuel, and servants. You stretch it across the week. If you earn money through sewing, teaching, taking lodgers, or helping in a family business, that income can belong to you more securely under law, yet earning itself may attract judgment. A middle-class wife working for wages can suggest that her husband has failed to provide. The household may need the money and still prefer that nobody discuss where it came from. You sign the paper carefully. Writing your own name beneath a financial agreement carries more meaning than the clerk acknowledges. Earlier generations of married women often needed trustees or special settlements to protect property. You can hold it directly. This matters for widows, deserted wives, businesswomen, and anyone trying to keep money safe from a husband's debts or poor decisions. It also changes the meaning of marriage by recognizing that a wife can have interests separate from her husband's. Reform is not complete, political rights remain limited. Women cannot vote in parliamentary elections, though some women who meet property conditions can take part in local elections. Family law still favours husbands in important ways, and legal action costs money. A right is most useful when you can afford to defend it. A poor woman may know the law has changed and still be unable to hire a solicitor. She can own her wages while living with someone capable of taking them by force. Statutes improve the ground beneath her feet. They do not remove every person standing on it. Credit brings another difficulty. Shopkeepers may extend household credit based on a husband's name and income. A wife can buy necessities for the family under legal principles tied to his duty to maintain her, but disputes arise over what counts as necessary and whether she had authority. The grocer is less interested in theory than in who will settle the account. Your own property rights help, yet daily commerce still follows familiar relationships. At home, the account book remains linked to money you may manage without fully commanding. The clerk finishes reading and asks where the interest should be entered. You answer. He stamps the paper and slides it back across the counter. Nothing dramatic happens. No crowd gathers outside. The money is yours before the law, recorded under your own name. You place the document inside your bag and feel its small weight. Parliament has recognised you as a financial person. This afternoon you will return home and ask whether the butcher can wait until Monday. The new property rights matter, especially when marriage has become unsafe or unbearable. Yet the front door is only the first barrier. Divorce is legally possible, but it is expensive and burdened by unequal expectations. A woman may need stronger proof of wrongdoing than her husband. Custody, reputation, and housing all complicate the choice to leave. A wealthy wife can reach lawyers. A poor woman may have nowhere secure to go and no income large enough to support her children. Family members might help, though assistance can arrive with conditions. You stand in the hallway and hear ordinary household sounds behind you. Freedom exists in law more clearly than it exists at the end of the street. The marriage looks respectable outside. The curtains are clean, the children attend school, and your husband is known at church, work, or the local club. Private cruelty does not always disturb the front step. It can remain inside ordinary rooms, mixed with meals, bills, apologies, and long stretches when nothing happens at all. This makes leaving difficult to explain. A neighbour may ask what has gone wrong and expect one dramatic answer. You may have hundreds of smaller ones. Before the middle of the 19th century, obtaining a full divorce in England is largely beyond ordinary people. It requires a private act of Parliament, which means influence, expense, and a public process. The Matrimonial Causes Act of 1857 creates a civil divorce court and makes legal separation more accessible than before. Accessible is a relative word. Proceedings still cost money, require evidence, and expose private life to judgment. The legal grounds are unequal. A husband can seek divorce by proving his wife's adultery. A wife generally must prove adultery together with another serious offence, such as cruelty, desertion, bigamy, or incest. The law does not simply ask whether the marriage has become impossible. It asks whether the wife can produce the correct kind of suffering in a form the court recognises. You imagine explaining years of fear to a solicitor who needs dates, witnesses and letters. Harm that happens behind a closed bedroom door is difficult to prove. Servants may have heard arguments, but asking them to testify risks scandal and their employment. Family members may know something is wrong and still urge patience. Marriage is considered permanent, and a woman who leaves can be blamed for breaking the household even when she is trying to survive it. Judicial separation offers another path. It allows spouses to live apart without ending the marriage, and in some cases can protect a wife's earnings and property. Yet it does not give her the freedom to remarry. Maintenance may be ordered, though collecting it is another matter. A husband who refuses payment can leave his wife returning to court while rent and food continue demanding cash. The law may declare support due. The landlord prefers to see it in her hand. Custody makes the decision sharper. Earlier in the century, fathers hold powerful legal claims over legitimate children. Reforms such as the Custody of Infants Acts of 1839 and 1873 give mothers stronger opportunities to seek custody or access, especially for younger children. But outcomes remain uncertain and shaped by respectability. A woman accused of adultery faces severe disadvantage. Even a blameless mother may fear that leaving the marital home will be used against her. The children sleeping upstairs are not simply part of the household, they are part of the legal risk. Money decides what choices can be attempted. A wealthy woman may have separate property, relatives with spare rooms, and a solicitor willing to act. A working woman may earn wages, but childcare and housing consume them quickly. A wife who has spent years managing a home without pay may have no recent employment and no reference. Taking in sewing, laundry, or lodgers may offer income, though each depends on space and equipment she may no longer possess. Domestic service is difficult for a woman with children. Respectable employers often want servants without dependents waiting nearby. Family help can be life-saving. It can also come with rules. A brother may offer a room but expect obedience. Parents may take you back while reminding you that they warned against the marriage. A sister may help with the children until her own household objects. Charity exists, as do refuges and homes for women in distress, but places are limited and admission can require strict conduct. The workhouse remains a feared last resort. It offers shelter at the price of harsh conditions, loss of independence, and possible separation from children. You stand with one hand on the banister and listen to a clock marking the hour. Leaving tonight would require a destination, money for transport, clothing for the children, and an explanation at every doorway. Staying requires another calculation, quieter and no less serious. Some women remain because they still love their husbands and hope for change. Others stay because the alternatives are worse. Some leave informally, without divorce, and build a new life under constant legal and social uncertainty. A woman can be physically outside the house while still tied to the marriage through money, custody, and reputation. You move away from the door and return to the room. The law has opened a narrow path, but it has placed fees, proof, and public opinion along nearly every step. Freedom is possible. It has simply been arranged so that the woman who needs it most may have the least money to reach it. Even when you remain, the bedroom contains pressures that polite society rarely names. A wife is expected to be affectionate and available while respectable women receive little useful sexual education. Contraceptive methods exist, but information and access vary widely. Pregnancy remains a real possibility inside a marriage already shaped by repeated births. The law offers almost no recognition that a wife may refuse her husband's sexual demands. Private harm can therefore remain hidden behind a relationship society describes as protective. You extinguish the candle and lie beside a person you may love deeply, fear quietly, or barely understand. The room is private. The rules inside it were written elsewhere. A respectable girl may enter marriage knowing very little about sex beyond warnings to remain pure before it. Mothers sometimes offer practical advice, but embarrassment limits the conversation. Books written for women often speak in softened language, while medical texts may be difficult to obtain or written from a male point of view. A bride can therefore discover the physical meaning of marriage on the wedding night, when everyone expects her to behave as though she has understood the arrangement for years. Love can make the experience tender. Ignorance can still make it frightening. The husband may know more, though his knowledge may come from equally poor sources. Some men learn from friends, brothels, medical warnings, or crude publications. A considerate husband listens and moves gently. Another assumes that marriage itself supplies consent. The law largely supports that assumption. Under the common law doctrine of the period, a husband is not treated as criminally raping his wife because marriage is understood to include continuing consent to intercourse. This idea will survive far beyond the Victorian age. Inside the bedroom, it leaves a wife with almost no legal protection when refusal is ignored. She may resist, plead illness, or avoid the room. None offers a dependable remedy. You lie still beneath heavy blankets and listen to the fire settling in the grate. The marriage may be affectionate, yet the possibility of pregnancy changes every encounter. Families can be large, and repeated childbirth carries risk. A woman who has survived a difficult labour may fear becoming pregnant again before her body has recovered. Her husband may worry about money while still expecting marital relations. The problem is discussed quietly because contraception sits near the borders of respectability, medicine, and obscenity. Methods exist. Couples may practice withdrawal or abstinence. Condoms made from animal membrane or rubber are available, though cost, comfort, and embarrassment limit use. Sponges, pessaries, douches, and other preparations are advertised discreetly or pass through private advice. Some are unreliable. Others irritate the body or introduce infection. Even useful information can be hard to obtain. The public trial of Charles Bradlaugh and Annie Besant in 1877 over a birth control pamphlet shows how strongly such material can be treated as obscene. The controversy spreads the information further, which is not the result its opponents intended. Working-class couples often have the greatest need to limit family size and the least access to safe advice. Another child brings love, but also food, clothing, rent, and the risk that the mother will lose paid work. In a wealthier household, servants reduce some daily labour. They do not carry the pregnancy or face the birth. You count the months between children and understand the arithmetic more personally than the account book ever will. Sexual pleasure is present too, though polite culture prefers to describe women as passive or naturally modest. Real women experience desire in varied ways, just as men do. Some marriages contain warmth, humour, and mutual affection. Couples write loving letters and build private lives more generous than public rules suggest. The danger lies in assuming that one ideal covers every bedroom. A wife may enjoy intimacy and still need the right to refuse it. She may love her husband and fear his temper. She may feel nothing except duty. Society is comfortable praising marriage as protection because it does not have to enter the room after the door closes. Medical ideas complicate the subject. Some doctors warn that too much sexual activity weakens the body, while others treat intercourse as a marital duty linked to health and reproduction. Women are told to avoid excessive passion but also to satisfy husbands. The advice creates a narrow path through which almost any outcome can be blamed on the wife. If she refuses, she is cold. If she shows desire, she is improper. If she becomes pregnant repeatedly, nature is fulfilling its purpose. If her health collapses, she may be described as delicate. The system has prepared several explanations and little practical help. You hear your husband breathing beside you. Perhaps he reaches for your hand and waits. Perhaps he does not. The difference matters more than any advice book admits. Privacy can shelter tenderness, but it can also shelter cruelty. A woman suffering violence may tell a sister, doctor, clergyman, or solicitor, yet each response depends on the listener. She can be advised to endure, avoid provoking him, or remember her vows. Physical injury may support a legal claim for separation, but proof remains difficult and public. The bedroom has no witness except the people inside it. The candle is out. The room is dark, though not peaceful for everyone. Marriage has given your husband legal and social authority. Kindness determines how he uses it. Victorian society calls that a private matter, which is convenient when the person needing help is behind the locked door. Outside the shop, carriage wheels pass through a mixture best avoided by any respectable hem. Horses keep the city moving and leave clear evidence of their contribution. You gather the skirt slightly before crossing, careful not to lift it high enough to invite a different kind of notice. Public movement is shaped by class and reputation. Working women travel because their wages depend on it. A middle-class wife has more freedom in certain streets, shops and parks, yet her behaviour is still observed. Who accompanies you can matter. So can the time of day. You step between two carts and reach the opposite pavement. The city has inspected your boots. Society has considered the rest. The pavement is uneven, and the curb is higher than the skirt prefers. You pause while an omnibus passes, its wheels cutting through mud, darkened by coal dust and horse manure. The smell belongs so completely to the street that nobody pauses to identify it. Thousands of horses carry passengers, pull delivery vans, move goods, and power much of urban life. They also produce waste in quantities no elegant city plan can conceal. Street cleaners remove what they can. Rain spreads the remainder into a thinner and more democratic form. Crossing demands attention. Traffic does not follow modern lights or painted lanes. Drivers, riders, carts, cabs and pedestrians negotiate through custom, shouted warning, and the shared wish not to be struck. A policeman may direct a busy junction, but the road still requires judgment. You look right, then left, though a horse can approach from almost any direction with the confidence of an animal that knows the economy depends on it. One hand lifts the skirt clear of the worst mud. The other holds your parcels. Fashion has provided no spare hand for balance. Clothing shapes the journey. A long hem gathers dirt, especially after rain. Boots protect the feet but can slip on wet stone. A bonnet narrows the view at the sides, while a veil softens dust and occasionally the entire street. Gloves remain clean until you touch a railing. Pale fabric records every mistake. A woman who arrives home with mud on her skirt has not merely crossed a road. She has allowed the road to produce evidence. Public respectability depends partly on where you go. A married middle-class woman can visit shops, churches, parks, charitable meetings and female friends without causing much concern. Walking alone in a familiar area during daylight may be acceptable. The same woman in a poorer district, near a public house, or outside late at night may attract questions. Reputation follows geography. A street can change the meaning of the person standing in it. Working women have less freedom to avoid such judgments because employment requires movement. Domestic servants walk on errands. Factory workers travel at early and late hours. Market women carry goods. Seamstresses deliver finished work. Their presence is necessary, but necessity does not protect them from harassment or moral suspicion. A woman alone may receive comments from men passing nearby. Ignoring them is often safer than answering. Looking confident can be read as invitation. Looking frightened can attract attention of another kind. You keep your pace even, and your eyes ahead. The street asks women to appear both alert and unaware. Public conveniences create another boundary. Facilities for women are scarce in many places, especially earlier in the century, because planners often assume respectable women will not remain away from home for long. A necessary stop can therefore shorten an outing, or force you into a railway station, department store, or trusted acquaintance's house. The city welcomes your custom more readily than it plans for your body. Transport offers alternatives, each with its own trouble. A cab costs money. An omnibus is cheaper but crowded, with steps difficult to manage in a long skirt. Railway travel expands women's mobility across towns and regions, yet stations and carriages raise questions about compartments, luggage, and suitable company. A woman travelling alone may be treated with courtesy or suspicion depending on her clothes, age, and apparent class. Respectable appearance acts like a ticket that must be renewed at every glance. Parks and promenades provide safer spaces for walking, but they are also stages for social display. The route and time of day matter. So does whether you are accompanied by a husband, child, servant, or female friend. A walk offering fresh air can also become a public review of your dress, posture, and acquaintances. You may enjoy it anyway. Control is not complete. Women use streets to work, organise, shop, protest, and build lives larger than the home. Suffrage campaigners distribute material and attend meetings. Nurses and reformers enter districts respectable society prefers not to see. Ordinary wives visit libraries, museums, and shops. Each journey widens the familiar world a little, even when someone disapproves. You reach the next pavement and lower the skirt. A splash has marked the hem, though not badly. One parcel has shifted beneath your arm. Behind you, traffic closes over the space you crossed. No one applauds. Crossing a Victorian street is an ordinary achievement, which means it must be completed without looking like one. You continue toward home, carrying tea, soap, and the knowledge that respectable freedom is easiest to maintain when it returns before dark. By evening, the dining room is ready while the kitchen remains several degrees warmer and far less calm. Dinner reflects income, household skill, and the reliability of the range. In a prosperous home, servants carry dishes upstairs after hours of hidden preparation. In a smaller one, you may have planned the meal and helped cook it before changing your expression for the table. Your husband returns hungry. The children do not know what the meat cost. A guest may notice the gravy without noticing the work behind it. You sit down as though dinner has arrived through a natural process shared by weather and good breeding. The first dish is served. Domestic order has taken an edible form. The meal has been planned since morning, when the account book decided how much meat could be afforded and the pantry decided what needed using first. A joint may anchor the table in a comfortable household, accompanied by vegetables, sauce, and a pudding. A poorer family makes a smaller amount travel farther through broth, pie, or stew. Season and region matter. So does the cook's skill, because she is expected to turn uncertain ingredients and an uneven range into punctual nourishment. The dining room sees only the final answer. Timing rules the kitchen. Soup must be hot when it leaves the pot. Meat needs resting but not cooling. Vegetables can move from firm to defeated while someone searches for the serving spoon. If there are several courses, each one must be ready at the proper moment without crowding the range. In a large home, the cook directs the sequence below stairs, while footmen or maids carry dishes to the family. A dinner gong announces that everyone should be seated. It does not inform the source that a guest has arrived late. You hear movement in the passage and straighten the cloth near your place. Table linen has been washed, starched, and ironed until it shows no sign of the labour involved. Plates are set according to the formality of the household. Knives and forks lie in their places. Glasses catch the light. Even a modest dinner asks for order because the table represents the home in miniature. A chipped dish may be turned so the floor faces inward. The family will still eat from it. Respectability prefers not to meet the crack directly. Your husband enters carrying the chill of the street and the appetite of someone who has not spent the afternoon smelling dinner cook. He asks what is being served. You answer calmly, though the menu has already passed through several private revisions. The fish was too expensive. The milk turned. The pudding required more flour than expected. What reaches the table is not simply the planned meal, it is the survivor. Children are washed and seated, at least in theory. Younger ones may eat earlier in the nursery among prosperous families, while older children join the adults and learn table manners through a series of corrections. Elbows are moved. Mouths are closed. A child who dislikes cabbage discovers that Victorian upbringing has prepared no separate menu. Food is not wasted merely because someone has developed a sudden moral position against greens. If a guest is present, conversation becomes another form of service. Politics, work, local news, and mutual acquaintances may appear between courses. Certain topics are avoided because appetite is considered delicate, though the age is willing to discuss empire beside roast beef without detecting strain. You listen, contribute where appropriate, and watch whether the serving dish needs passing. The mistress of the house is both participant and quiet manager. If the cook has done well, praise may reach the dining room. If something is wrong, you notice before anyone says so. The gravy is slightly thin. You decide not to look at it too often. Servants experience dinner differently. They may eat their own meal before or after serving the family, depending on household practice. A cook who has spent hours preparing food can sit down only once the important people have finished kneading it. Kitchen maids wash pans. A parlour maid carries plates through the passage, trying not to spill sauce on the carpet. The family's leisurely course is another person's repeated journey through a swinging door. In a smaller home, you may rise yourself to fetch the next dish. Returning to the table without appearing flustered becomes part of the performance. Dinner proves more than hunger has been solved. It shows that the household can afford fuel, food, linen, and enough labour to coordinate them. Advice books place great weight on a well-run table because meals shape family routine and social standing. A wife who manages dinner well is praised for domestic skill. The praise rarely includes the hours spent comparing prices, trimming meat, or preventing the pudding from collapsing. The achievement is measured by how little effort remains visible. At last, plates are cleared. The children begin losing interest in posture. Your husband leans back, satisfied. A guest compliments the meal, and you thank him as though you discovered it already arranged beneath a silver cover. Below stairs, washing up has begun. Grease cools on pans. Leftovers are examined for tomorrow. The table looks calm because every difficulty has been carried through the door. Dinner has succeeded. The family is fed, the guest is impressed, and only the kitchen knows how close the gravy came to telling the truth. After dinner, a small flame appears behind a glass shade. Gas lighting allows reading and sewing to continue long after sunset, but the new brightness brings its own concerns. A leaking fixture can fill the room with gas. The flame adds heat and uses oxygen while combustion products gather in poorly ventilated spaces. Curtains must remain at a respectful distance. Some households still use oil lamps or candles because gas is unavailable or too expensive. You turn the tap until the flame settles into place. The walls brighten, and the room becomes useful again. Modern light has arrived. It would prefer that someone keep watching it. Gas has already changed the streets outside. Lamps glow along major roads, shops remain open later, and public buildings shine with a brightness that once required rows of candles. Inside the home, the effect feels almost luxurious. A single burner can illuminate a room more strongly than several candles, allowing you to mend, read, or write without leaning quite so close to the page. Evening expands. This sounds like freedom, until the household discovers that an expanded evening contains more time for work. You bring the sewing basket nearer and inspect a torn cuff beneath the flame. The light remains steady when the gas pressure behaves. It can also hiss, flicker, or burn with a yellow tip that leaves soot on the shade. The burner needs cleaning. The glass globe gathers dust and fumes. If the flame is turned too high, it wastes gas and darkens the ceiling. If it is too low, the room returns to shadows while the bill remains interested. Gas enters through pipes connected to local works where coal is heated to produce the fuel. The same system that brings light also brings a distinct smell. Manufactured town gas contains compounds that can be detected when a leak occurs, though the odour is not a safety system anyone should admire for elegance. Joints can loosen, taps can be left partly open. A flame blown out by a draft may allow gas to continue entering the room. You check the fitting when the smell seems stronger than usual. The tap is closed correctly. The air remains close because the room has been shut against winter. Ventilation creates another compromise. Opening a window clears stale air but loses heat purchased through coal. Keeping it closed traps warmth, moisture, and the products of combustion. Gas flames consume oxygen and add water vapour and carbon dioxide to the room. Poorly maintained appliances can produce more dangerous gases. Victorians do not always understand every chemical detail, but many recognise that gaslit rooms become hot and stuffy. Headaches and nausea may follow a long evening. The usual answer is fresh air, which winter provides with unnecessary enthusiasm. The flame remains open. Paper, hair, sleeves and curtains must stay away. A glass shade can become hot enough to burn fingers. Children are warned not to touch the fittings, which gives the fittings a sudden importance they did not possess before the warning. Matches are kept close because the gas must be lit promptly after the tap opens. Delay allows fuel to collect. You strike the match first, then turn the tap, a sequence learned through caution. A person who reverses it may receive a small burst of flame and a lasting respect for procedure. Chandeliers with several burners brighten larger rooms and increase the heat overhead. Decorative fittings turn a practical system into a sign of status. A fashionable drawing room can glow beautifully while the ceiling slowly discolours above it. Bedrooms may use wall brackets or portable lamps instead, especially where gas pipes have not been installed throughout the house. Some families distrust gas and continue with oil or candles. Paraffin lamps offer bright light but require filling, wick trimming, and care against spills. Poor quality fuel or damaged lamps can cause fires. Candles are familiar and portable, yet expensive if used freely and weak for close work. Every form of light arrives with maintenance. Electric light is beginning to appear in selected late Victorian streets, theatres, hotels, and wealthy buildings, but it remains unusual in ordinary homes. People gather to admire bulbs burning without flame. Your drawing room still depends on gas, which feels modern enough until the fitting begins to hiss. Darkness is the only option that asks nothing, though it limits nearly everything else. Gaslight changes daily expectations. Shops, factories, theatres and offices can operate later. Domestic work can continue after sunset instead of ending with it. A wife may finish accounts at the table, a servant irons or polishes below stairs, children read lessons. Longer usable hours do not automatically become leisure. Technology has extended the day without asking who was already tired. You thread a needle beneath the burner and begin repairing the cuff. The brighter light makes the stitches easier to place. It also reveals dust on the side table that candlelight had treated more kindly. Progress has improved visibility, which is not always the same as improving the room. Outside, gas lamps mark the street in warm intervals. Inside, the flame gives a faint hiss behind the glass. You finish the seam, not the thread, and look toward the clock. The evening has grown longer and more useful. The household is grateful. Your eyes would like to submit a different report. Under the gaslight, the green pattern on the parlour wall looks especially rich. Certain popular Victorian pigments contain arsenic, a poison that can also appear in fabrics and other household goods. Not every green wall is dangerous, but concern grows as doctors and reformers connect some products with illness. Damp conditions may worsen the risk. Manufacturers defend attractive colours because the public continues buying them, and certainty develops slowly. You sit close enough to admire the leaves printed across the paper. The room already contains soot, glue, and gas fumes, which makes assigning blame difficult when someone feels unwell. The wallpaper remains fashionable. Fashion has never promised to testify honestly. The colour is one reason people buy it. Bright green is difficult to produce with older dyes, and arsenic-based pigments such as Shields green and Paris green offer a vivid result. Manufacturers use them in wallpaper printing, artificial flowers, fabrics, paint, and other goods. The finished pattern can look fresh and natural, which is a generous impression for a product containing poison. A drawing room covered in green leaves suggests clean country air, while remaining several miles and one chemical process away from either. Arsenic does not leave every wall in the same manner. Risk depends on the pigment, the condition of the paper, the room, and how exposure occurs. Dust from flaking surfaces can carry particles. Workers who manufacture the pigment, print the paper, or handle artificial flowers may face especially high exposure. At home, dampness and deterioration raise concern. Some 19th century doctors and investigators also argue that mould acting on arsenical wallpaper may release toxic gases. The exact chemistry is debated then, and remains more complicated than a simple tale of walls breathing poison. What is not in doubt is that arsenic pigments can make workers and consumers ill. You run one finger near a loose seam without touching it. The paper has begun lifting where the wall feels damp. A faint powder gathers at the edge. It may be ordinary dust. Victorian houses provide enough ordinary dust to confuse almost any inquiry. Symptoms linked with arsenic exposure can include irritation, nausea, weakness, headaches, and skin trouble. These complaints are common enough to have many possible causes. A headache after an evening in the parlour could come from gaslight, stale air, worry, infection, or the fact that the children have remained indoors all day. A doctor must decide which ordinary danger deserves attention. The wallpaper has the advantage of looking expensive and therefore respectable. This delays suspicion. Public concern grows through reports of illness among factory workers and consumers. Newspapers discuss poisonous colours. Chemists test samples. Reformers call for safer goods. Manufacturers respond unevenly. Some advertise products as free from arsenic, turning safety into a selling point. Others dispute the danger or insist that proper use makes the pigment harmless. Removing a profitable colour is less attractive when customers continue asking for it. Commerce has never enjoyed being corrected by a rash. William Morris is often associated with richly patterned Victorian wallpaper and with the wider controversy over arsenical pigments. Some products made by his firm used arsenic-based greens, especially earlier on, and his family wealth was connected to mining interests. He was sceptical of certain claims about wallpaper poisoning, as were others who considered the evidence uncertain. The wider industry did not depend on one designer, but famous patterns help show how beauty, business, and incomplete science can share a room without speaking honestly to one another. The paper around you may not be made by Morris at all. It does not need a famous name to contain a fashionable colour. Arsenic also enters the home through artificial flowers worn on dresses or hats. Women who manufacture them can develop sores and illness from handling dyed materials. Green fabric may shed dust. Children's toys and confectionery sometimes use unsafe colours before regulation becomes stronger. The danger is not that every bright object is lethal. It is that buyers have limited ways to know which one was made cheaply, carelessly, or with a pigment already under suspicion. Labels offer little help. The household chooses by appearance and reputation. Replacing wallpaper is not simple. It costs money, disrupts the room, and requires labour. Stripping old paper can release more dust. The wall beneath may be damp or damaged, demanding repair before a safer covering goes up. A family that suspects the green pattern may still live beside it for months while deciding whether concern justifies expense. You might increase ventilation, keep children from touching loose areas, or move a chair away from the wall. These are small acts taken in the absence of certainty. By the later 19th century, safer synthetic dyes and growing public pressure reduced the use of arsenical colours, though no single moment removes them from every home. Old paper remains on walls after fashion changes. Second-hand goods continue circulating. A pigment can outlive the advertisement that praised it. You rise and examine the pattern from farther away. The leaves are elegant in the softened light. Nothing about them appears violent. That is what makes ordinary household hazards so unsettling. They arrive as useful medicine, warm flames, bright toys, and tasteful decoration. The green wall does not threaten anyone. It simply remains where respectable people have paid to put it. The same bedroom that welcomed a child may later become quiet for a different reason. Many Victorians die at home, surrounded by relatives and familiar furniture. After death, the body may be washed and prepared by women of the family, a nurse, or someone hired for the task. Curtains close. Mirrors may be covered according to family custom, and mourning clothes are brought from storage or purchased quickly. Formal mourning gives grief a visible shape, especially for widows expected to wear black through defined stages. The ritual can offer structure and public recognition. It also adds work and expense to sorrow. You smooth the dark fabric with one hand. The house has changed, although every chair remains where it was. Death enters domestic life often. Illness may have lasted for weeks, turning the bedroom into a sick room filled with medicine bottles, basins, and quietly changed linen. Family members take turns beside the bed. A doctor visits. The final hours may be calm or sudden. When breathing stops, there is no hospital corridor to take over. The room remains yours, and the next duties begin within it. Someone closes the eyes and straightens the limbs before stiffness sets in. The body is washed and dressed in clean clothing or a shroud. Hair is arranged. The jaw may be supported with cloth for a time. These acts can be tender, practical, and deeply painful at once. Women often perform them because care of the body extends from birth through illness and death. A nurse or professional layer-out may be called, especially in towns. In poorer homes, relatives do what is needed with the same basin used for ordinary washing. Death has changed its meaning, not its handle. The body may remain in the house until burial. A coffin is ordered from an undertaker, carpenter, or furnishing firm. By the later Victorian period, commercial undertakers offer increasingly complete arrangements, from transport to mourning goods. Their services save families from some tasks and create new expenses at the exact moment judgment is least welcome. The coffin may rest in a bedroom or parlour. Visitors come to pay respects. Flowers, candles, or religious objects may be placed nearby according to family belief and custom. Windows are opened at times for air, though fear of drafts has finally met an event it cannot worsen. Customs vary widely. Covering mirrors, stopping clocks, drawing blinds, and turning pictures may be observed in some families and regions, but not every Victorian household follows the same ritual. Later retellings often gather every mourning custom into one crowded room. Real families choose according to faith, class, local habit, and personal feeling. You cover the mirror because your mother did, or leave it uncovered because there is already enough to manage. Grief does not need a complete catalogue to be real. News must be sent. Letters are written to relatives. A notice may appear in the newspaper. The funeral date depends on the undertaker, clergy, cemetery, and the practical need to bury the body before decay becomes a problem. In winter, cold can slow change. In summer, time presses harder. Embalming is not routine in British domestic life in the way later American practice may suggest. Ice and cooling can help where available, but most funerals occur within a relatively short period. The household clock moves toward burial, while the bereaved still struggles to understand the death. Mourning clothing makes sorrow visible. Widows face the strictest expectations, especially among families able to follow formal etiquette. Deep mourning may require dull black fabrics and crepe, with little ornament. Later stages allow changes in material and touches of grey, mauve or white. The exact length and sequence vary, and not every woman follows manuals precisely. A widow with money can purchase a new wardrobe quickly. A poorer woman dyes existing clothing, borrows garments, or wears what she can. Black dye may damage fabric, and crepe is difficult to maintain. Grief has entered the laundry as well as the heart. Men's mourning dress is generally less burdensome. A dark suit, hatband, or armband may satisfy public expectation. Women carry more of the visible code, and for longer. A widow who returns to colour too quickly can attract criticism. One who remains in deep mourning may be praised for devotion while enduring heavy dark fabric through summer. The rules offer protection by telling others that she is grieving. They also tell her how grief should look, how long it should remain, and when society may begin considering her available again. Children wear mourning too, though the degree depends on age and family means. Servants may be given black clothing or bands because the whole household represents the loss. The cost spreads through wages, fabric, stationery, funeral fees, and food for visitors. Respectability makes death expensive. Poor families may join burial clubs or friendly societies, paying small regular sums so a funeral can be afforded later. A decent burial matters deeply because a pauper funeral carries shame. Families sacrifice food and rent to avoid it. The funeral finally leaves the house. Curtains remain closed. The familiar rooms feel altered by the absence of one person who once moved through them. After visitors depart, cups need washing and chairs return to place. Ordinary work resumes because grief does not stop the grate from cooling. You fold the black fabric and lay it carefully across the bed. Tomorrow you will wear it in public. Tonight, the room is quiet enough that no clothing is required to prove anything. At last the lamps are lowered and the children have stopped calling from upstairs. The house sounds peaceful. Before bed, the fire must be banked so a little heat may survive until morning. A stocking waits beside the chair with a small tear at the heel. Tomorrow's account lies closed on the table, though the numbers have not improved during dinner. Somewhere below stairs a servant may still be finishing her own long day. You check the doors, place the household keys within reach, and carry the final candle toward the bedroom. Most of today's work has left nothing permanent behind. The family has been warmed, fed, and kept safe enough to sleep. By dawn, the same care will be needed again. For now, the corridor grows dark behind you. The last tasks are quiet ones, which makes them easy for everyone else to forget. You move through the dining room and straighten a chair left at an angle. The fire has sunk low in the grate. A larger piece of coal is placed carefully over the embers. Then the draft is reduced so the fuel burns slowly through the night. Banking a fire takes judgment. Smother it completely, and morning begins with cold ash. Leave it too lively and coal is wasted while the family sleeps. The grate receives one final look. Victorian rest begins. Only after tomorrow's warmth has been considered. Lamps and candles follow. Gas taps are closed, oil lamps extinguished, and candles snuffed without scattering wax. Each room grows dark in stages. Polished furniture loses its authority. Wallpaper retreats. Dust becomes mercifully invisible. The rooms that demanded order all day now ask only not to catch fire. Below stairs, the kitchen is still warm. Pans stand drying near the range. Leftovers have been covered and placed in the coolest available space. The table has been scrubbed. A maid may be cleaning the last knife or carrying hot water upward for the family's bedrooms. Her working day began before yours and may finish after it. If she sleeps in the attic, several flights of stairs still remain between her and bed. Tomorrow the bell will ring again. For now, she rubs her hands dry and checks that the kitchen fire is safe. You hear faint movement through the floorboards and know the house is not yet resting equally. The household keys carry their own weight. They secure cupboards, stores and linen, making you the keeper of supplies other people need. You place the ring beside the bed. The keys are a sign of authority and several small metal reasons why someone may wake you. Mending waits beside the chair. The stocking tear is small enough to repair before it grows. You thread the needle beneath the final lamp and draw the edges together. Clothing is too valuable to discard for a worn heel. Socks, underclothes, children's garments, and household linen return repeatedly to the sewing basket. A few stitches tonight prevent a larger repair tomorrow. This is how much of domestic life works. Small trouble is noticed early, handled quietly, and then forgotten because it never became a crisis. The person who prevented it receives the same attention as the hole that no longer exists. The account book remains closed. There is no benefit in adding the figures again, though the mind tries. Coal will need ordering. The grocer must be paid. A child's boots still require attention. You think through tomorrow's meals, and remember that the pantry contains enough flour for bread if the yeast behaves. Planning follows you into the quiet because morning begins more smoothly when someone has already lived through it in thought. Your husband may read briefly, speak about his day, or fall asleep while you are still removing pins from your hair. He has finished work and returned home. Your work has changed rooms. You climb the stairs with the candle held away from the wall. Shadows move along the landing. Behind one door a child coughs and then settles. You pause to listen. The sound does not return. In the nursery, blankets are checked and a small hand moved away from the cold edge of the bed. A fireguard stands correctly before the grate. The medicine bottle remains on its high shelf. Safety at night is another set of quiet inspections. Bedroom preparation begins with cold water, loosened clothing, and the relief of removing garments that have shaped the body since morning. Hooks are opened. The corset is set aside. Hairpins come out one by one, each leaving a small easing of pressure across the scalp. The respectable figure in the mirror slowly becomes an ordinary tired woman in a nightdress. No guest sees this version. It is the most honest appearance of the day. You place the candle on the table and draw the curtains. A warming pan may have passed through the bed if the household can spare the coals. Otherwise, the sheets feel cold at first and gradually accept you. The chamber pot waits beneath the bed, already prepared for its return to duty. Outside, wheels fade along the street. Chimneys send the last smoke into the dark. Inside, the house has reached the condition everyone calls peaceful. Its fires are safe, its doors locked, and its people sleeping beneath clean linen. You lower the flame and settle into the pillow. Nothing more is required tonight, unless someone wakes, coughs, cries, feels cold, or remembers something. Victorian rest is complete, subject to the household's immediate needs. And now the last lamp has been turned low, the kitchen range has settled into a patient red glow, and the Victorian house can finally loosen its grip on the day. The chamber pot is back beneath the bed. The account book is closed. The final cup has been washed. The coal scuttle rests beside the grate, and somewhere under the roof a tired servant has reached a narrow room of her own. You have moved through a world where warmth had to be carried, water had to be lifted, food had to be judged by sight and smell, and a respectable home was expected to look calm no matter how much effort stood behind it. You have seen dangerous medicines offered as comfort, gaslight praised while it thickened the air, and fashionable wallpaper allowed to look innocent for far too long. You have also seen how easily a wife could be held responsible for the health, order, and reputation of a household while being given limited power over money, marriage, and her own body. Still, the women who lived in these rooms were never merely trapped figures in dark dresses. They learned the moods of fires, the signs of illness, and the small economies that kept a family fed until payday. They nursed children, repaired clothing, protected private grief, and found quiet companionship across kitchen tables and afternoon tea trays. Much of their strength looked ordinary because it had to. It was a clean sheet after wash day, a meal made from what remained, a child carried through fever, or one more morning begun before the rest of the house. As you return gently to the present, notice the comforts waiting around you. Water arrives without a bucket. Light appears without an open flame. Food can remain cold without a daily argument with the pantry. These things do not make you wiser than the people who came before. They simply help you understand how much labour once stood between a family and an ordinary evening. Let the soot fade from the mantle now. Let the heavy skirts, the stiff collars, and the careful social rules grow soft at the edges. The doors are secure. The fire is safe. No account needs balancing tonight. Settle deeper into the pillow. Let the room become still, and allow sleep to come quietly, with nothing left for you to carry until morning. Have a good night.